We are live, and it looks like our turnout catapulted from 9 to 13 in these final minutes, which is actually a little bit, one or two fewer players than last week, but I'm okay with it. We did have, some trouble with the announcements, and I know some players might not be interested in a pre-ban list event. However, in just under a minute, we will be ready to start, and we're going to see how it goes. And also the event is longer, so some players might not be able to do it. And somebody snuck in right at the end to raise it to 15 total players in the room. Let's go ahead and hop over to the spectate function. We ourselves are not going to be playing. And yes, Draco, it's going to be a top 4 cut again. I think the top 4 seemed pretty reasonable last time. And remember, if you are playing and you think that you've scored so highly that players are not going to be able to overcome your point difference, you are able to stop queuing. Stay in the room, of course, but you don't actually have to play for the whole 2 hours and risk losing rank if you think your lead is enough. Let's go ahead and hop right on in. I think we have to start with Sora. Sora is an absolute menace and has won 2 consecutive events. Though, I hear they did lose in a smaller event yesterday to Paco. So I'll probably check Paco out next. Sora, of course, most well known for the 7's Axel Road deck, but there's always a chance they have switched things up today. Let's find out. We see an opponent on Thunder. Stormbolt Destroyer is going to be able to revive a monster, but this doesn't even clear the board. And when combined with a widespread ruin, Moosh is in a very bad spot. 7's Axel Road is able to easily put out boards full of high-level monsters. We see 7's Axel Road into the sorcery. Show us another high level or even a 15 here, and that is representing just barely under 6,000. We see Sora decide to play a round recital rather than a copy of the guard. It's only 2,000 damage, but it doesn't really matter. In either case, Moosh is down to 200. Had Sora found a 4th attribute, this game would already be over. That being said, I think this game is already over. Sora even has a card in hand, and that means no piercing is coming through. There is almost no way for Moosh to get over this board without leaving themselves open to at least 200 damage on the counterattack. Welcome, JD Scrub. We are doing pretty well today. Been a productive morning with recording videos, editing, and getting things set up for this. Let's see Sora end this. Tornado Windweaver, that's a 2,400 attack point monster. And if anything other than a 1,500 is flipped up here, even the 7-Sword Witch would be enough damage. And with the search for 7-Sword Witch, this is completely over. There is no face down card Moosh could have that would save them. All 3 of these monsters are going to be able to swing over whatever Torna flips up and finish our first game of this event. See Sora swing into the Trigger Drago, but it is a copy of Sword and Shield, which is not going to be enough, as Trigger Drago loses 1,000 attack from the trap. Let's go ahead and see how Paco has been doing. I believe this is the first battle they are on. And we see a little bit of a surprise. Paco is normally playing some form of dragon deck, but it looks like they are on Roa today. Will it be Hammer Crush Duel or one of the Royal Rebel skills? This is probably a lot of players' last chance to bring in full power Hell Tuning Invasion. The deck is going to be losing the King's Majesty or a heavy metal starting next week. So I could see wanting to bring the deck for a final hurrah. Against Paco, we have Zid on Harpies, and they are running the Twin Edge Dragon tech. By using Harpy Lady Sisters, you are able to boost up the Twin Edge Dragon and let it clear out opposing face-down monsters before getting in for direct damage. And you can also, of course, use Speedy Performer. And we do see Hell Tuning Invasion into Heavy Metal. Unfortunately for Zid, this Harpy Lady Sisters becomes level 1. It feels like this should be a pretty bad matchup. Yet despite that, we know the Goha Rush Festival winner was on Harpies for the majority of their run. So despite the heavy metal absorptions, this deck is able to push out damage just as well. We see a signature combo of the Harpy deck. Activating Talismanic Seal Array to empty the graveyard will allow Ghost Cyclone to give you those extra cards you need. We see Zid able to get over this board, but with no boss monsters. Will they be able to survive? A heavy metal represents exactly 2,600. Just barely enough to survive. And of course, an invasion is 23. If Paco has the Shadow Buyer, it would be over. But Paco whiffs and sets a monster face down, giving Zid one more chance. A Shield and Sword draw would be game ending. But do they have it? They need Shield and Sword into middle piece for the 3,100 swing. Putting your monsters into defense mode isn't going to be enough. Hell Tuning Invasion will flip them up, and the invasion on board will swing over it for a game. We see a Harpy Lady Sisters and a Speedy Performer. Harpy Lady is now able to clear whatever is face down, but that doesn't sound like enough. Welcome, Demon Bee Gaming. Yes, this event was open to anyone, but unfortunately the way Duel Links works, once a point battle has begun, new players are not able to get into the room. If you'd like to participate in the future, I will go ahead and send you all a link to the Discord server where this event is being held. Let me go ahead and grab you all that now. And welcome, Slifer Slacky. Didn't respond to the message earlier, but how are you doing? Zid has one card face down. If it's Widespread Ruin, it theoretically could get them through another turn. We know without Shadow Buyer, Paco's deck struggles to attack with more than one monster at a time. But if it's Invasion, they would need something like the Guard. And we see Rogue of Archfiend. Into Heavy Metal, this face down card needs to be a Music Princess's Recital. But we see a concession, meaning it probably was the Widespread Ruin, which was going to be completely blocked out by the Rogue. Let's go ahead and see how Draco and Gonchi are doing. Both of these players are fairly recognizable if you've been watching our other events. I believe Draco has a win, or at least a top 4. Whereas Gonchi, I don't actually know how it's pronounced, is just a generally regarded high-level player. Mystic Dealer, ditching a 7-Zord Magician into a fairly weak opening board. But why were they getting rid of the 7-Zord Magician like that? Perhaps they were just looking for another low-level monster to keep some advantage on the board through a heavy metal. But as it is, it looks like this is going to be a disaster. Gonchi has the Essel and manages to revive a 7's Road Magician. which is able to boost itself up higher than this heavy metal that was also milled. Though it looks like it was from the 7 Zone Edition, so it was not a target for Essel. By using the Mystic Dealer on turn 1, Draco put a card for Gonchi to revive. We see another 7 Zone Edition coming out. So we are at least able to clear the high-level monsters. But we see Widespread Ruin is in the graveyard, meaning all 3 of these back row are probably not going to be enough to stop the attack. We see an absorption, and is there a recital? There is not. Draco loses the game to a heavy metal. It looks like Draco is in the chat and mentions that 2 of those 3 back rows were the guard. So they were planning on refining an invasion and then blocking their attack by getting extra cards in the discard pile. With only 2 monsters on field and no 3rd level monster, they would need to use the Mystic Dealer to guarantee they had 3. But unfortunately, it was a bunch of heavy metals instead. Here comes... what players have we not seen yet? Manarchist and Renegade. Let's go ahead and hop into there. Alright, Renegade on. I'm gonna assume this is Magnum Overlord. I know we've seen some 7 Deck Vote players, but I believe Renegade is an Overlord believer. Especially when we look at those sleeves. Alright, we see... Oh, could it actually be Acebreaker? The Avant Wolf is a rare sight these days. Hell-tuning Invasion, immediately flipping over to Grace Princess Kana. Even if Invasion wasn't here to destroy all of the monsters, Renegade would be fairly vulnerable. Manarchist gets in for 2,300. And this is almost certainly going to be the Acebreaker deck with a healthy Aqua engine. That's actually quite a lot. Bubbly Elf over the La Moon. This is almost certainly because Bubbly Elf is a level 2 monster. And if a level 7 monster has its level reduced by... No, they're also running La Moon. I thought for sure it was just going to be a substitute to play around heavy metals. But both Bubbly Elf, La Moon, and even Kana are in this deck. Heavy metal plus Invasion. Things are not looking good for Renegade at all. Rogue of Archfiend giving both bosses widespread immunity. Fortunately for Renegade, the Guard is able to protect from this direct attack and to give them another turn. But Manarchist is at a healthy 6,000 life. Are they really going to be able to clear out this entire board and avoid taking a hit on the next turn? We see an Aim Eagle, which can bring in a very powerful Acebreaker. But are they going to commit 2 extra cards just to destroy one of the monsters? It looks like probably not. Talismanic Seal Array, shuffling away and weakening the heavy metal. And now a low-level monster like Essel is good enough to clear. Just barely. Getting in for 100 damage. And Renegade now has another card face down. Meaning, if it is the Widespread Ruin, there is a fairly reasonable chance of surviving this turn. And thanks to Invasion, another copy of the Guard would work as well. Just one monster, and it is Widespread Ruin. Manarchist keeps one monster in defense mode. And I don't think the Ultimate Bond deck is going to really be able to output 4,700 damage like this. Even Acebreaker, which requires 2 monsters to discard to use its destruction effect, can only destroy face-up monsters. And without the boost to 3,500 from Aim Eagle, due to the lack of a level 7 monster on board, Renegade is not going to be able to swing in for any damage, as the face down card is a Babysitter Goat. And with 1,400 defense, Essel is walled out. I think Renegade didn't necessarily misplay here. You definitely need to push in for damage, and 1,000 probably wasn't going to be enough. Shadowbuyer is using the effect, going up to level 6, and that means there might just be a raw heavy metal coming onto the board. But no, it's Invasion. A little bit weird, but this actually does play around the guard and Recital. By not using the effect, you get in for game. That is a pretty clever line. And we haven't actually seen Quas or Quasar or Yawn yet, so we're gonna go ahead and watch this. A Mimi is definitely not a character I was expecting to see, but are they on an archive skill? It looks like they are. And some nice Currybot sleeves. I actually don't remember owning those. Are those from the shop? Or did I miss an event somewhere? In any case, we see presumably a Harpy player, and with the Faith Bird, it is all but confirmed. Hysteric Force, activating and flipping up a Currybot. Quasar making a... Well, if they don't already know that it is a Harpy player, setting the 3 makes sense. Oh, and thank you, Fodder Cannon, for the Prime subscription. As a subscriber, if you have any deck profile or other type of video you'd like me to make, send me a message over on Discord. I offer it in the YouTube membership perks, and I extend it over to the Twitch subs as well. We actually have an Ancient Rise video coming out next week, as Draco requested something like that with their subscription. Back to the game. Heavy Metal is coming down. However, Harpy Lady Sisters is immune to monster effects. Unfortunately for them though, Heavy Metal will still gain attack, even if the monster is not destroyed. And that's going to be a pretty significant damage push. Lamoon coming down. And we have to be seeing a pet dragon or a sacrifice next. 2 tributes and pet dragon it is. Oh, I'm glad you've been enjoying the streams. Oh, is that a prismatic pet dragon? I feel like that is pretty rare, though we have been getting a few of those guaranteed UR prismatic packs, so perhaps they pulled it from that. I unfortunately have not pulled much of anything. I think I have like a Pierce, a Dion Keto, and then some other thing from my prismatic pulls. Alright, and we see a concession by Quasar. That Harpy's Pet Dragon was apparently a little bit too much. Alright, next up. I think, Sias might be the only player we haven't seen yet. So let's go ahead and hop into this game and see what they're on today. And then I'm also going to take a quick moment to check the Discord and make sure things are proceeding smoothly. There's nobody mentioning issues over in the tournament tab. Perfect. Alright, what will Paco do against a set 3 board? Paco also was definitely on Hell-Tuning Invasion the first time we saw them. They are taking advantage of the point battle rules to switch up their deck. We know from the skill that they are on Magnum Overlord, but we see 2 copies of Piercing Samurai, ready to get in for some pretty significant damage. So the Magician flipped up. But if that is a Strange Cat, or a Doriado, or Magician's Valkyria, the Piercing Samurais do nothing. And Paco maintains board presence against a pretty strong field. And we see a double Light Sorcerer Sanctity, but it's not just 600. Magician's Valkyria is a 3rd light spellcaster, providing a total of 1800 debuffs without summoning a single high-level monster. Paco completely wipes this board. and a Ghost Cyclone, but without the Talismanic Seal Array to go with it. There is not going to be an extra card drawn here. It looks like Paco also had a Ghost Cyclone face down. Now, do they have anything to clear this board? If they can't get over a 1600, they are going to be in trouble. Giving a deck that already has a full board, including some quite good monsters, an extra chance to establish a lead could be resulting in a Torn of the Windweaver coming down and then inflicting massive damage when you tribute it off for a 7-zone Magician. Or 7-zone Magician could come out first. Elemental Road to 3,000. But without a Torna, that's not going to be much of a problem. How long can they set 3 and survive? We don't know for sure. But what we do know is that the longer the game goes on, the more and more likely Paco gets to drawing Magnum Overlord. The Harpy player could theoretically also go ahead and Maximum Summon at some point, but it is so much more less likely. Trick Pigeon recurring the boss monster from previously and getting rid of a dead Ghost Cyclone. Not a bad plan. Harpy Lady flipping up, and we know that Trick Pigeon is definitely going to be getting tributed off. But what will they do with the other 3 cards in hand? Harpy Lady, of course, is not going to be able to clear either of those monsters as is. They would need a copy of the middle Harpy if they want to do that. But no, they flip over the Harpy Lady and then tribute it off. Seems a little bit meaningless. But with this, the board should be getting cleared. Magician's Valkyria is the only low-level monster with 1500 or more defense. So now you can safely boost up your Harpy Lady sisters, clear the 2 attack position monsters, and have Faithbird take out whatever is in defense mode. Left piece swings in. Middle piece swings in. And finally, a Mystic Dealer falls. Let's see what Paco does next. We are getting very close to the point where Magnum Overlord could end the game. However, currently it would only be at 4,500 attack, which is just barely not enough to clear. We see 7-zone Magician activating the effect though. And a couple of other strong monsters could do it. Setting a monster. Do they have a second 7-zone Magician? No. A second 7-zone Magician would have been 100 off actually. Unless one of those 2 tributes were a new element. Paco returns green to the top of the deck. Alright, how can Silas end the game this turn? They are absolutely in the danger zone. With only 1,600 life points remaining, a Magnum Overlord is going to run over these monsters and finish it. But I'm not seeing a way to inflict 3,400 damage through 2 set monsters. They would need a pretty crazy board, something like Tribute Off for Pet Dragon, then summon a Twin Edge, and then Twin Edge boost with something that they don't have. And now, Paco has 1 guaranteed maximum piece, and probably a second one already in hand. If they can find the third one, they will run right over this board, unless Silas has a face down card that can stop it. But we know the only ways to do that are King's Majesty and Call the Earthbound. There are no setups for King's Majesty in the graveyard, and no defense position monsters to redirect the attack to for Earthbound. Sora says, Paco is playing cringe. Make sure you all send DMs to Paco, harass them, leak their IP address on public forums, make sure you post their social security number and mother's maiden name on Twitter. And lastly, tag them in your Discord post calling residents bad. Alright, and Paco does debuff with Light Sorcerer of Sanctity. But is that going to be enough? It's only 300. And here comes the completely necessary Machine Magnum Overlord. However, I'm not convinced that the Light Sorcerer's Sanctity is doing its job. This is definitely game, but I'm pretty sure it was game beforehand. So we see a swing in for 2300. The Light Sorcerer's Sanctity absolutely not doing anything there. However, it put in so much work earlier in the match that it is definitely still quite a good card and makes a good showing overall. Let's go ahead and check out Bunglepuss, as I believe we have not seen them in action yet. Unless they are the Mimi that we saw earlier and I just forgot. But I thought that was Quasar. Oh no, Yaon is the Mimi. And Bunglepuss is a Yuga. Okay. So Yaon on Harpies. But what is Bungle playing? Alright, Beagle sets the cards and passes turn. Yvonne goes ahead and sets 3 back row and ends turn. It is now Bagel's turn, and they reveal a Rising Light Angel Essel, sending some monsters into the graveyard for 7's Road Magician. Followed by a Torn of the Windweaver, which is not going to be able to use the effect as there is nothing there to switch over. And we see another 7's Axel Road player. I believe this is the 3rd one in this event. The deck is generally considered to be a tier 2 or 3 strategy. However, with Store's incredible showing in both the Go Hard Rush Festival and several tournaments since then, the deck is on the map for Western players. And with no monsters on the field for the first turn, Yaon is down to 2,000 life points. Widespread Ruin keeps them alive, but a lone Harpy Lady Sisters is probably not going to be enough, especially not in the face of a Torn of the Windweaver. We see a 7's Road Witch, and it is past turn 4. There is a guaranteed 7's Road Magician in Bugle's hand. 7's Road Magician coming down even without the search, and Torn of the Windweaver to defense mode. Any attack is lethal, but a Music Princess Recital is going to stop the first swing. Do they also have a copy of the guard? They do not. This is game. Manaka says, why are people playing slow in point battles? More games is a chance for more points. A lot of the times, players are just trying new decks or thinking through plays. I don't think, there's much value to, say, showboating, if you know you have lethal. But I know some players just take longer in general to think through their plays and figure things out. Let's go ahead and see Renegade versus Sora. Renegade was considering bringing Dark Arts of Celerity to this event. However, our room is completely filled with Harpy and 7's Axel Road players, which means stopping the tribute summons is going to do nothing. Level 5 and 6 monsters are able to be summoned for, with no penalty, even under the delay directive. So the Harpy deck gets off scot-free. And 7's Axel Road players are, of course, special summoning the 7's Road Magician with the effect of Witch, Ghost Cyclone, Popping, Shield, and Sword, which is an incredible pop when you're ending on a board with 2 zero defense monsters. We see a Torn of the Windweaver get in for a full 2400. And things are not looking good for Renegade. Renegade goes ahead and sets 2 new monsters. But they're going to need to clear out that Torna if they want a chance to keep playing. They do, and they pass it over. We've seen Renegade reveal multiple copies of the green piece. And I'm going to go ahead and assume that that top card in hand is another. The head is on board, but if it gets cleared, is there a second copy of it in hand? Or is it blue? Or is it just another low-level monster they weren't able to set? We'll find out soon, assuming they survive this turn. Torna the Windweaver is another incredible flip, and on a strange cat, that is absolutely going to be game. Renegade has no trap cards to defend from a free 3300 direct attack. Sora showing off the value of Torna the Windweaver. It has been half an hour. We are 1/4 of the way through the point battle portion. Let's go ahead and take a look at the results. Apparently, Bunglepuss is actually in first place with 4,000 points. Sora and Moosh tied for second. And then plenty of players struggling around the 2,000 mark. Then there's a pretty significant drop off. Keep in mind though, there is still plenty of time for these to change. Even if you've won 0 duels this entire time, or if you're winning and losing and stuck at 0, you can always queue into a player with more points and claim a huge jump with just a single win. Don't give up yet. In the meantime, if they are in first place, we're gonna go ahead and follow them for a little bit and see what they do. Harpies versus I think we said this was 7's Axel Road as well. Hysteric Force is going to be flipping over a monster, and they choose the tribute set Witch. Makes sense to get it out of the way, though they do give up on potential extra damage. Presumably the face down monster is not going to be something that had a decent attack stat, like Harpy Lady, otherwise it should have probably done swinging into the Mystic Dealer. Essel milling some additional cards for 7's Sword Magician. Followed by 2 Light Sorcerers of Sanctity. However, are they going to go in for maximum damage, or are they going to take the guaranteed clear? There is a very high chance that this face-down monster has 1400 defense. Tyhone, Kana, Harpy Lady. They give up on the chance to attack directly, but potentially did deal more damage in the process. Harpy's Pet Dragon coming in with a Harpy Lady Sisters. But how will they distribute the buffs? You don't want to put everything on the Harpy's Pet Dragon in case we see a widespread ruin. Alright, 2 monsters capable of clearing 7's Magician makes sense. And they swing in to play around Recital, saving the weakest monster for last, but also buffing it so that way a Curtain of Sparks out of nowhere would not stop any of these attacks. Alright, 7's Axel Road activating with the Magician's Valkyria. Truly an incredible card to boost this deck. Having a normal summonable level 4 monster that triggers the skill is such a crazy buff. Back when the game released, players were still including cards like 7's Axel Splat in order to get more triggers for the skill. This card did have some value as it would be able to boost itself up to 2600, whereas a lot of the other ones are stuck at 24. But not needing to tribute for the Magician's Valkyria is just insane. And definitely overall a much higher value. Cyclone says, came back from teaching a drunk man Yu-Gi-Oh! Glad you guys had fun with it. Were you playing what decks? I'm assuming this is probably speed or master rules in some variety, which sounds like a tough game to play drunk. Alice says, waiting for Konami to release Pendulum Rush. We definitely do not have anything like that in the physical game currently. There were speculations that we would see Synchro introduced during the Go Rush era, as one of the theme songs had a word that was very similar in sound to Synchro, but it was a pretty wild and baseless rumor. Welcome, Cyclone. We are watching a point battle tournament We have, I believe, 14 players in the room, not including myself. However, 1 or 2 of those haven't actually been seen on the Duel list. So probably somewhere between 10 and 12 actual players in contention for Top Cut. Basically, instead of having a tournament bracket where you have to go to another external site, sign up, submit your deck list, the point battle system has several key advantages. First, all you need is a Duel code to sign up. Second, there's no waiting in between games, except for what is happening in the in-game matchmaker. In a Swiss tournament, you have to wait for everybody to finish round number 1 before you can start round number 2. But in here, if you finish your first game, you can go ahead, click the Q button, and you're ready to go right away. So players get way more practice over the course of the event. Third, there's no elimination during the bracket portion. So a single elimination tournament is also kind of like the point battle in that you're going to be playing your games at a much faster rate, as you're able to queue whenever your match is ready, rather than having to wait for the entire round. However, once you lose, you are out. In the point battle, this is still not a concern, as even if you get no points, you have the opportunity to simply keep things going. And we see a crazy play from Zid. They are willing to take significant damage in order to add back that copy of Sword and Shield from their graveyard to their hand. With only 1,500 life points remaining, will it pay off? We see Harpy Lady Sisters, and that is game. Cyclone, there is one downside to the point battle, and that is that Duel Links does not allow players to enter the room after the event starts. Personally, I think that is a bit of a little bit unnecessary, as like I said, it is a point system. So if I miss the first half an hour of a 2-hour event, I could actually still theoretically queue in and get some revenge, win all my games, and still make the top cut. However, for some reason, Duel Links just does not allow us to do that. Hopefully the server did not crash for everybody, but I apparently am being forced to reboot. However, Cyclone, if you would like to participate in future events, I will send you a link to the RDL server where this event is being hosted. Let me go ahead and grab that again. I know I posted it in the chat earlier, but that was before you were here. In the meantime, let's go ahead and get Dingus. I don't think we have actually seen Dingus participate in a match yet, so we're gonna go ahead and definitely queue into that. I believe the last time we spectated Dingus in a previous event, they were on a pretty weird aggro deck featuring cards like Attribute Hydron and Super King Rex. Let's see if they are still keeping it up or if they have switched over to something else. Alright, Dingus is up against Paco, and we see they are still running Black Dragon Rising. This is what they've been running in the last few events, unless there has been a significant change. Players are probably a little bit more familiar with Black Dragon Rising Royal Rebels, which of course has faded into obscurity after the release of the newest mini box and super mini box, pushing skills like Hell Tuning Evasion. Then there is also the Yami Ruler variant of Black Dragon Rising. The thing both of those decks have in common is that they use level 8 boss monsters. The Black Dragon Rising skill prevents you from attacking with level 7 monsters, except for the Red Eyes Black Dragon and maybe other normal monsters the turn you use the skill. However, level 8 monsters are immune to this restriction, meaning you are able to run Red Eyes Black Dragon alongside a variety of level 8 monsters. And this is why Dingus has chosen an aggro deck featuring Attribute Hydron and Super King Rex, 2 additional level 8 monsters. We see an interesting play. Urabi is going to go ahead and crash with a Light Sorcerer. Then Femtom goes in. However, this is only 100 extra damage had they used a Music Princess's Recital. So I guess it is a bit of a toss-up, and no real need to play around either Recital or a Guard here. They just go ahead, swing in, and we see Paco not doing anything. But the question is, did they actually not have anything? Or are they simply intentionally trying to lower their life points? We see Super King Rex does not use the effect of a Vaibu Rabi, missing out on a potential 1500 damage. But against an Overlord player, perhaps Dingus is actually just too afraid to get in for damage when the opponent could summon a maximum monster on them and end the game. We see Paco also doesn't swing in, and that is because the 800 debuff puts King Rex at 1700. Torna, a 1600 attack point monster, is actually not able to clear Super King Rex even with the help of the skill, and you can't even change it to defense mode as it has 2000 defense. In contrast, we do see Attribute Hydron with 0 defense, and here comes a Tribute to the Doomed. Dingus might be going for game. Talismanic Seal Array is going to reduce that Torna down to 0, and it looks like Paco did not have it. Dingus takes a sneaky win out of nowhere. Let's go ahead and spectate another round of Sora. Alright, and Sora is up first. Seven-Sword Magician doesn't usually want to summon any of their boss monsters turn 1, so I'm expecting something pretty passive here. You especially don't want to get rid of your own Seven-Sword Magician for no reason, but we do see them going with 2 different sets here. I suppose Sora just bricked a little bit too hard and decided that they were going to go ahead and get this out. However, the face down card is almost certainly going to be a Seven-Sword Magician. And with Twin Edge Dragon swinging in, that is 2000 damage off from Sora's life points. Definitely an interesting start here. Had they simply kept the 2 Seven-Sword Magicians in hand and gone with Torna plus Strange Cat, they actually would have been in a pretty reasonable spot, instead of taking any damage at all. However, it's hard to say this is actually a bad position when we look at the state of the board. If there's not a widespread villain here to stop this, but Sora fails to play around around a Music Princess's recital. Definitely could have pushed in for a little bit more damage there. Fortunately, there is no punish, and Ghost Cyclone comes down though and destroys the widespread ruin. However, Zid does not get a boss monster, and it keeps a card in hand anyway, so the extra drop from the Ghost Cyclone may not have even helped. We see Seven's Axel Road activating once again, and now there's chance for another Seven's Magician to come down. Instead though, Sora simply keeps the cards as is, and clears out the defense position monsters. How is Zid going to deal with this? Ghost Cyclone, probably not going to put in a lot of work here, at least offensively. Of course, destroying the shield and sword is quite good when all of your boss monsters have 0 defense. But we see a boost to Twin Edge Dragon, and I think Hysteric Force is going to, or the Harpy Lady Sisters is going to boost it again, bringing it over 1600 and allowing it to attack twice. Twin Edge Dragon clears out Magician's Valkyria, and then we see the Seven-Sword Magician going down. But this is still not quite enough. Faithbird gets in for a direct attack, but it's not game, and we know Sora already has a Seven-Sword Magician in hand. All they need to do is find some low-level monsters, and they can bring in an incredibly powerful monster. Light Sorcerer of Sanctity, debuffing that Twin Edge Dragon, I think, and then the Seven-Sword Magician can go in for a game-winning blow by attacking over it, completely ignoring the boss monster. Talismanic Seal Array, completely unnecessary with the amount of damage already on board. But we see it, and then a concession. Let's go ahead and check in with Moosh, who I believe was in a solid 2nd place. However, unfortunately, we are getting hit with another reboot error. So while this thing is loading up, I'll go ahead and check on the Discord, make sure there's nothing crazy going on in the chat. By the way, if anyone in the Twitch's YouTube chat has a player or deck you'd like to see more of, definitely let me know and we can follow them. Let's head back into the duel room. Spectate. And where is the game we were trying to see? I don't know, but I found Moosh, though I believe it might be a different opponent. Perhaps that game finished, and that is why we got stuck with the reboot error, trying to queue into a game after it's finished. and we see Moosh with an incredible Thunder board, clearing out 2 monsters with their own bosses. And then Paco is on something different again. Definitely been switching up their deck much more than usual. Thunder the Thunder and Gazelle, this could be Legend Draw aggro. Most players, of course, are on Hammer Crush Deal instead of Legend Draw. And it's certainly my choice of preferred skill, but it could also be some other thing we haven't seen yet. And here it is, of course, the Multi-Strike Dragon Dragius, just as we would expect. Dragius is going to be able to clear out both of these boss monsters, thanks to the help of Light Sorcerer of Sanctity. Essel coming onto the board, but it's not going to be able to revive anything, though it could. Send more cards into the graveyard for a future Talismanic Seal Ray. Unfortunately, we see a Widespread Ruin sent straight to the grave. Definitely not what you want to see out of your Essel. Was the setup worth it? Blast Draws going down, and a direct attack for 1500. Despite milling the widespread, Paco is still at an advantage here. Can Moosh and their cow playmat turn things around? Paco even has a card in hand, meaning Thunder Gazelle and Trigger Drago are both unable to activate their effect. We see a Trigger Drago as expected, but if there is not a Stormbolt Destroyer coming out first, the odds of summoning a double boss board or successfully clearing this drops significantly. Angler Coilfish and another 1500 would do it, or even a Blast Draws. Unfortunately, Moosh has another card in hand, potentially the 3rd Trigger Drago. And with that, they are unable to clear the Essel, while also not even having a full board themselves. Shield and Sword could reduce those monsters significantly to the point that a Dragius would be all but game ending. Paco is thinking. What are they going to do? Apart from the Dragius, they are presumably going to be on a Barrel Dragon. But I don't think you can activate Legend Draw if you have a monster on board. And that Essel might be coming back to bite them now. They might have a Dragius in hand, but no debuff, and are trying to figure out if they have lethal by swinging over the 2 monsters and crashing with a Dragius. That would be 1,000, making them down to 2,800. So they need to have 2 1500s in order to do so. A Barrel Dragon. If this lands on heads, it's almost certainly over. And there we go. Trigger Drago is down. Show me 2 1500s or that Crawling Torso into another boss monster. This is so over. Or not. It looks like the extra card was just to set another card face down. But what card would Paco want to keep in hand? Maybe it's another copy of Crawling Torso, or a card like Pakpakachu. And it's not enough to represent lethal damage, so they wanted to go ahead and just set the low-level zombie monster to keep something else around. If it was a boss monster, it was definitely going to be coming down. And if it was a spell or trap card, it would also be set. So my bet on Paco's final card is either Crawling Torso or Paco. If they are running it. We have seen plenty of beasts, but not really enough to guarantee they're running the engine. This is also just the vanilla with the best stats in the game. So we'll see how it goes. Welcome, Xantru. Trigger Drago coming down. But fortunately for Paco, once again, there is no piercing damage, as the Crawling Torso was able to provide another card. Alright, let's see what they've got. Shield and Sword. Dragius represents 1,000 damage, plus an additional 900. And with 2 Light Sorcerers of Sanctity, that is another 1,200 debuff. Here comes Dragius. I'm pretty sure this was already game, even without using the Light Sorcerer of Sanctity. That being said, they go ahead, swing in, and that is going to be it for this one. we'll go ahead, watch another game or two, do a ranking update, and then probably take a quick water break. But before that, let's go ahead and check on Renegade, who I hear has been struggling a little bit. Renegade is definitely a solid player. But in a point battle room, if you are going win-loss, you can end up with only a couple of 100 points or even 0. And it'll look as though you haven't even been playing at all. The difference between a 0% win rate and 50% win rate in these rooms can actually be a little bit difficult to tell. You need to be winning more than you're losing by a fair amount to actually get ahead on points. Just like in the Rush Festival. And here comes the Yami Ruler. Renegade has decided to switch up the deck. Perhaps other players on the 7's Axel Road have decided to switch up as well, leaving an opportunity for Yami Ruler to put in some work. We see a Roa, but Sias is on an archive skill rather than Hell Tuning Invasion. And there is a pretty good chance we are going to be seeing some Harpies coming down. Penguin says, do I have the ID for the room? Unfortunately, with the event already starting, new players are not able to join. If they were, I would absolutely allow it. I think it's a little bit silly that they aren't. But Penguin, if you stick around after the tournament concludes in a couple of hours, I will be transitioning over to a casual viewer duel room. And also using the opportunity to test out post-banless Ancient Arise Dragon. So I'll be playing with viewers. Viewers can also duel each other freely, of course. So stick around after the tournament for that. That being said, let's get back into this game. We see a Monster Reincarnation and 2 copies of Piercing Samurai. Now, if you've only played in Thunders, you might not remember, but Piercing Samurai can actually boost up this Yami Ruler and give it Piercing. It's any warrior type monster on your board. Yami Ruler is swinging in and runs into another Piercing Samurai for a solid 1500, but the second Piercing Samurai only has 1200 attack and fails to clear a Taihone. Looks like they miss out on 200 damage. Allah says, you'll be able to see my hand if I play with you all. Yeah, usually it's not a huge deal. Obviously, players that do snipe the back row do exist, but I've played with viewers plenty of times before, and it's just something I kind of accept. I actually even streamed most of my Goha Rush Festival climb. Though, I suppose in Stage 2, you actually can't see who you're fighting until after the match ends, so stream sniping is not actually that big of a deal. Unless you happen to be watching the stream and then queue into me. Alright, Renegade has a solid board, but it looks like Sias is going to summon out a pet dragon, and there is still an open slot for a Harpy Lady Sisters to get in for a huge damage swing. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like they have it, but they do have Talismanic Seal Array to debuff Yami Ruler down to 900. And when combined with Hysteric Force, boosting the Harpy Pet Dragon to 2700, clearing this board should be easy. Unless Renegade has something set up in the graveyard, which they don't. We see they are running the Cobalt and a Currybot engine. Presumably there are babysitter goats in here as well. King's Majesty is still currently not on the Limit 3 list for this event, as the April 4th ban list has not been updated. However, we see the Faithbird swing in, and that is definitely a mistake, as Piercing Samurai is now unable to clear the Yami Ruler. And that leaves Renegade with a card on field. Definitely a miscalculation. Let's see what Renegade uses this card advantage for, if anything. Alright, we see the Prismatic Currybot and a 200 attack Grace Princess. Almost certainly, they will be traded off for another Yami Ruler or a Kime Ruler. Kime Ruler is coming down, but will Celerity actually even want to switch any of these monsters to defense mode? I suppose it is a 200-point piercing by switching the samurai to defense. Oh, and they actually are giving the piercing over to Kime Ruler. So are they going to choose not to clear the Harpy's Pet Dragon? No, they actually have a second boss monster in hand. And now they can clear both Harpy's Pet Dragon and a low-level monster of their choice with piercing damage. Talismanic Seal Array protecting against any kind of wacky battle trick by sending that Harpy's Pet Dragon's attack straight down. A lot of Harpy players are on Sword and Shield, the trap card. But against Celerity, it is going to do nothing. Those monsters have incredible defense stats to back up their equally threatening 2500 attack. Let's go ahead and see Yami Ruler crash into that pet dragon, just as expected. And next, Kime Ruler is presumably going to go in for the piercing damage. They choose to get in for the extra 100 rather than clearing the Faith Bird, who has an additional 300 attack. I think that play is totally fine. The Faith Bird is probably not what's going to give Sias lethal if they have it. Trick Pigeon, a great card if there are anything to recur. But it looks like there is nothing. So they distributed off for the Harpy's Lady Sisters. And this one is immune to trap cards. We have not seen Widespread Ruin come out from Renegade just yet. So having that trap immune Harpy is definitely a boon. Alright, they are setting a monster, and this field is not looking that strong. Even if they have 3 trap cards face down. Renegade can always get in for some pretty big damage just from piercing. And with the Talismanic Seal Array being activated, there are now all 3 copies of the Piercing Samurai back in Renegade's deck, despite I'm pretty sure we've already seen all 3 of them already. Harpy Lady Sisters gets in, but only for 100 damage. And with only 1100 life, a Dark Arts of Celerity into Piercing Samurai represents a very lethal push. Renegade draws for turn. And there is a pretty good chance this will be the last turn of the game. That said, turn 8 is a little bit long. Not like a super extended game, but definitely a little bit above average. I think most games are ending in the turn 5 to 6 range. Which could be an issue for a point battle. If your deck takes 50% longer to finish all of your game, then you're getting fewer games in during the period. Manarchist, there are, I believe, 15 players. Then minus me, it's 14. And then 1 or 2 might actually be in the room, but not actually queuing. So expect somewhere to between 10 to 12 players. It is definitely a little bit unfortunate that players are fighting the same people over and over. Hopefully it at least is separated a little bit, rather than just playing one person 3 times in a row and then another person 3 times in a row. This is an issue that we can solve by promoting the events more. If we manage to get a more active community and more people are in the room, the issue solves itself. And that is part of what we need to do with calculating how long to make this room, the point battle portion of the event, last. Based on feedback, an hour was a little bit short. But if you're playing just the 3 people for a full other hour, maybe that's a little bit too long. So maybe we'll switch over to 90 minutes next time. Until we get, let's say 25, 30 people. Like, as you can see right here, there are only 3 games going on, which is 6. Plus, of course, the 2 that just finished. Okay, and as you can see here, 13 members, minus me, that is 12 potential people participating in the room. Remember, currently Quaz has risen to first place. Bungle is still in the top 4. And Sora is actually claiming 3rd. However, there is a lot of competition. Renegade and Paco still both in it. and we are going to get into some more games very soon. We have just crossed the halfway portion of the point battle. After this, the top 4 will compete in the single elimination tournament bracket. That said, I definitely need to go get some water and stretch for a minute. So we will resume with the second half of this point battle in just a few minutes. Take this time, grab a snack, and we will be right back. And we are back. Let's see if anything has changed while we were gone. Quaz is still in first place. Everything looks the same. I don't think any battles have been completed. Oh, actually. Renegade falling down to 8th, which means there must have been a player or two. And wait, Moosh all the way back down to 0. What an incredible fall from the top of the room. I am pretty sure Magnum Cringe is Sora, who has changed their name to represent, no. Wait, no, they must be the Yuga. They are. Okay. I'm pretty sure this is Sora versus Draco. And starting off with a tribute set. Magnum presumably does have another 1600 attack point monster in hand. But we see a huge Essel milling both Trigger Draco and Destroyer. Following up with a monster reincarnation, this board is going to be insane. Thunder Gazelle unfortunately not able to use the effect as Sora has kept 2 monsters in hand. That said, Draco Rush keeps a card of their own, while also being able to clear out this board. Unfortunately though, they do not play around the Magician's Valkyria. This is actually a knowledge check that a lot of players are going to fail against the 7's Axel Road deck. The level 4 and lower monsters are going to have a chance to be the Valkyria with 1600 or with 1800 defense, and it can also be a strange cat with 1400. However, the 1 tribute monsters are almost overwhelmingly going to be Torna and Seven-Zode Witch, which only have 1000 defense. Some cards like Dark Magician Girl and Seven's Axel Splat do have 1700 defense, but players are largely no longer running them. So if you have a card that is a 1500 beater, or even a little bit lower, like a Harpy Lady or Tyhone, you should actually attack the set tribute monsters. Unless, of course, it's the Seven-Zode Magician, but you can tell that apart with a 1 tribute versus 2. And that's going to make sure you are safely clearing out the opponent's board and getting in for as much damage as you can. Tricky Drago coming in, and this time it actually does have access to the piercing damage. We see a 0-card hand from Sora. However, despite the big hit, Sora is not out, and Draco is down to just 1400 life. Summoning out this Search Bolt Lizard could be a mistake, as now a Seven-Zode Magician is going to end the game. Just swinging over the Search Bolt Lizard. Whereas I don't think it necessarily would have been game swinging into a Tricky Drago, unless they have all of the attributes set up. We see Light, Dark, Earth, and only 3 attributes. The Seven-Zode Magician, exactly as I said, it's going to go up to 3000 and clear over the Search Bolt Lizard. However, had Draco simply not summoned that Search Bolt Lizard, they would have been fine. Theoretically, in this case, setting it face down wouldn't have worked, as Sora also drew into a Torna the Windweaver, but Torna plus Seven-Zode is at least a little bit more specific than asking them to just find the boss monster, especially if it was in a situation where it was searchable. Let's go ahead and see what happens next. Luke versus Mimi. Paco on an archive skill. And I'm pretty sure Yaon has been on Harpies this entire time. Paco going ahead and setting 3. But if this is a Harpy player, setting 3 is a mistake. You should always put your strongest monster into attack mode. That way the Hysteric Force can't actually flip up something weak. That said, perhaps all 3 of Paco's monsters were strong. They were not. There was a chance of having this flipped up. So I think not putting the Thunder in attack mode was a misplay when you know that your opponent is on an archive skill. Especially if you have actually queued into them earlier in the event. I don't know if Paco has. That being said, the punish was non-existent. The highest attack point monster got flipped up, and Paco responded with a double Dragius board, bringing Yaon all the way down to 600 life points. Hysteric Force is going to boost up this Harpy Lady Sisters L, and a Widespread Boon can't even destroy it. Furthermore, I believe Paco may be on the list that only runs 3 Dragius and the Barrel Dragon. Paco has gone through all 3 copies of Dragius. Are they going to be able to finish off this game? We see Shield and Sword, and that is a 0 attack, undefended Harpy Lady. Essel comes in and swings. Boss monster unnecessary. What a wild and swingy game. Now I believe Quasar was in first, which means we should definitely go ahead and see what they are running. Are they going to be the Roa or the Nail? They are indeed a Roa. Is Hell-Tuning Invasion dominating the scene just as players would expect? Sora says, Paco switched from cringe to cringier. I need to know, Sora, what decks are not cringe? Apart from, of course, Seven's Axel Road. Alright, so we see an Angler Coilfish, but 2 set monsters. A lone Palace Gargoyle falls. Alright, Kobold getting rid of an invasion. Quasar almost certainly going to have another one in hand, as invasion is the one you want to use here without a doubt. Manicus does have a couple copies of these Thunder Beetles to try to get around Heavy Metal being annoying. But in this case, Invasion is going to wipe them clean from the board. And with a double boss board, Manarchus is down to 1200 life. Another invasion ends the game immediately. Clapping Thunder, an extra card. And we see a Trigger Drago. Just in time. Lightning Trigger. Debuff and switch to defense. That's 2800 piercing damage. But, like I said, Invasion or Heavy Metal can both end this game right away. We see Invasion sent to the graveyard. And Quasar has chosen to play around the opponent having the Guard rather than Recital. But it is a widespread ruin. Quasar had access to an Invasion plus Shadowbuyer, I think. No, the final card, yeah. I think they may have messed up. No, I think maybe they only had the two. It was 2 low levels, the face down, and one of each boss. So they wouldn't have been able to summon the Shadowbuyer alongside it. Okay. That makes sense. Oh, I clicked the wrong button. Let's go ahead and hop right back into things. And let's follow Quasar one more time. Alright, so Sora says everything except Magnum and Dargius aggro are not cringe. I'm actually kind of surprised to hear that Royal Rebels does not make the cringe list. Alright, we see a field of low levels, but the set card is Tyhone. And that means Quasar is unable to get in for any damage. A lone 1400 defender fielding off 3 monsters, giving Sias the chance they need to establish their own board. After a pretty bricky start. Oh, I apparently missed thing is saying they weren't able to play for the whole 2 hours. No problem. Thank you for joining anyway. For some reason, it didn't show up on the stream chat, but I just checked over in the YouTube stream manager. Sorry for not responding earlier. John says, Harpies are not cringe. I don't know. I think their artwork is a little bit sus. A lot of the time. Alright, so we see the Piercing Samurai boosted up. Now, all 3 of those monsters are able to clear 1 or more monsters on the opponent's field. However, they don't go from strongest to weakest, meaning a Recital could theoretically stop a few hundred more damage than otherwise. That being said, seems like it doesn't matter. Not many people are on Recital anyway. So there is, of course, no punish. Alright, Shadowbuyer coming in. And that is a potential level 8 monster. It would be able to attack even after the skill. But it looks like it might be getting sent to the graveyard. No, Shadowbuyer is using the effect. Is it going to be tributed off? Or is it simply here? They could theoretically summon another low monster and then summon Heavy Metal, keeping the Shadowbuyer around. But it seems unlikely. Here comes Invasion, which is going to clear this board no problem. And then more back row. Rather than having the Invasion to swing, rather than having Shadowbuyer to swing with Invasion, they opted to set whatever this extra card is face down. Which I feel like makes a pretty good case for this being the widespread ruin. I would definitely be targeting this one, given the chance. And of course, reading the situation does not lie. It is indeed Widespread Ruin, and Ghost Cyclone is going to completely wipe it from the board. We know this card didn't do anything last time. There is a small possibility that it is a copy of the guard, but we see a concession. Before we even see 3,100 damage on the board, they are just assuming that they would have been able to get there, which was probably pretty fair. Alright, and here comes Sora versus Manarchist. Setting a couple of cards face down, that is an incredibly weak start. But surely there are not 3 copies of Seven Sword Magicians in Magnum's hand. That would be completely crazy. And we've seen Sora definitely go for Tribute setting on turn 1 previously. Widespread Ruin, it might be the Magician's Valkyria. No, it's a Curry bot. Oh wait, Sora's changed deck. Somehow I completely missed the Roa staring at me this whole time. They are on Hell Tuning Invasion, but still, a 3-boss opening hand is fairly unlikely. However, Manarchist getting hit by the Widespread Ruin means that Sora is not that far behind, and in fact, with this attack, they are taking the lead. That being said, a lone heavy metal is not a strong field. Stormbolt Destroyer and Trigger Drago would end the game here. You have the 1500 swing into a 0 defense heavy metal, and you can swing in for 4,000 or even 5,200 damage, if I did that right. Alright, we see the Trigger Drago added to hand, followed by Trigger Drago, just as suspected, but no copy of Stormbolt Destroyer to finish it. That means the Thunder Beetle is going to clear out the heavy metal, and then it's only 4,300. Sora hangs on with just a little bit, and 3,500. If Sora summons Shadow Buyer plus Invasion, this will clear the board and finish the game. We see the Shadow Buyer. Show me a 3rd level monster. I think Sora is going to do it. Sora sends a Ghost Cyclone. They have a Shadow Buyer on board. Invasion for game. And there it is. 1,200. 2,300. That is 35. Let's go ahead and check how Paco is doing against Quasar. Alright, starting with a tribute set. I'm pretty sure that's gotta be the Barrel Dragon at 2,200. But why go for it? Maybe that's a Zero Defense monster and a heavy metal would not be able to clear. No, it's actually Dragius. But they have the invasion, so this plan does not really work out. Invasion, and then Essel is going to steal that Dragius. I think Paco may have messed up. I don't think there was really a strong reason to summon this Dragius. Shield and Sword activated. Setting a monster, summoning a monster, and no tribute. Paco passes it over after clearing invasion, but we see the Essel go straight to defense. Quasar has whiffed a turn. And if we see another Dragius, just like this. But what is that set card? Why would they not choose to flip it up? it must be a zombie monster that they wanted to keep around for another heavy metal. But this is going to prevent them from swinging in for any damage against a set 3 board. Shadowbuyer coming in, and Cobalt to dig. Plus the Shadowbuyer. This could be pretty dangerous. Invasion. This is 3,500. And Paco has already used the Widespread Ruin. There is a very high chance they go down to just 200 life points this turn. And with Shield and Sword gone, are they going to be able to deal 4,500 in one turn? They'd have to summon something like 2 copies of Dragius in order to do that. And that seems very unlikely. They would need a perfect hand. I mean, even if you summon a Barrel Dragon here and clear the invasion, I'm not sure you have lethal. Let's see what they do. Thunder the Thunder. Sure. And Clauselus is informing me that Quasar might actually be Whoop pretending to be Quasar. Which is interesting. And makes sense, because I know Whoop was asking me what the room code was. That is a very good point. We haven't seen Whoop at all in the Duel room. But I know Whoop is playing, so they must be Quasar, which is very funny. We have 3 groups of people still going. Paco has actually managed to claim first place with 6,000 points. And it is a neck and neck race for 4th place. Renegade has currently snuck in after spending the first half of the event kind of struggling, but they are only 1 loss away from potentially derailing into 5th, especially if Yaon manages to get up and win their next game. They have a serious shot at top 4. As we go down, things get a little bit rougher, but there is still plenty of game left to go. Let's go ahead and check out, I was going to say Paco, but Paco does not appear to be currently dueling. So instead, we'll go ahead and see the one at the top of the list. Welcome, Tomato. I'd say it is going pretty well. I do think we have 1 or 2 fewer players than last time, unfortunately, but it has been a pretty exciting point battle so far. A lot of players started off quite strong, but are slipping, and a lot of players who did poorly at the beginning are still in it. So it's been fun to watch, and we have actually seen a pretty fair variety of decks. Due to Sora's performance in recent tournaments, Sims Axel Road was a popular early pick. However, a lot of players are definitely taking advantage of the ability to change your deck in a point battle room. With such a small field of players, queuing into the same player multiple times is pretty likely. So by switching your deck, you are able to maintain some level of mystery and not have your opponent play around all of your strategies early on. Hysteric Force, boosting up the Harpy Lady Sisters to be immune to Widespread Ruin. I think this is definitely the right play. Then I would probably boost the middle one, just so that you have another strong monster. No need to put everything on the one Harpy. Alright, but do they have a copy of the Guard? And they do. See us playing around Recital instead. And with that, they did actually miss out on the extra 500 damage. Maybe they should have actually boosted the left side after all, and just go all in on it. But then they would lose to a shield and sword, I think. Since the Remote Destroyer has 1600. Definitely a tough choice. Alright, and the board has been completely cleared, which is actually pretty incredible. There were 3 high-level monsters on Sias's board, but all 3 have fallen. Happy Lady Sisters and a right side coming back. Harpies quite powerful at establishing their multi-boss monster boards easily. However, both of those monsters have 0 defense, and Sias has no cards in hand. A couple of Trigger Dragos could end this game, and with an extra card left on the board, it is quite possible to see it happen. We see Thunder Gazelle giving Angler Coilfish piercing damage, which means probably no Trigger Dragos are coming out. We see a swing in, and while this is a lot of damage, it might not be enough to end the game. Sias gets another turn, and only has to deal 1700 damage to win. A Harpy Lady Sisters represents 2600, which is over 1000. 2 copies of the middle piece would end this game. Or even just a sufficiently boosted Harpy's Pet Dragon. Will they find it? It doesn't look like it. However, with 1 card left in hand, Trigger Drago is unable to deal piercing damage. Manacus throws a card face down and decides to just go straight into battle. So there was a Trick Pigeon, plus a Spell and Trap card. So they could have chosen to get a boss monster back, but instead chose not to. Could it be a 3rd copy of Talismanic Seal Array face down, going in for a lethal push? Wait. Oh, and Manarchist chooses to leave a monster on board. They are afraid of that being a Ghost Cyclone, and Manarchist almost certainly has set Widespread Ruin. If it was a copy of the Guard or a bluff spell, the Ghost Cyclone would not be nearly as important. But Manarchist is choosing to protect their face down card with everything they've got. It has to be the Widespread. We see 2 more set cards. And more back row. Without a Piercing Samurai, there's not many ways for Manarchist to actually get through and finish the game. And that could be their downfall. If the Harpy player is able to just indefinitely stall, then they'll be fine. Especially if they're on Shield and Sword. Eventually they'll be able to switch those monsters to 0 defense. And then the game is over. There it is, Shield and Sword, just as I was explaining. Summon out 3 good monsters, and this game is yours. Even a Widespread Ruin isn't going to be able to stop it. Piercing Samurai? Okay. Harpy Lady, that is fine. Those do add up to currently 2400 damage. But it actually may not be over if Manarchist has good trap cards. But do they really not have anything? Oh, it's a Thunder Beetle boost, gaining 1300. Is their final card the Guard? No. Manarchist goes down to a bunch of low-level monsters. That is the power of the legend spells. Let's go ahead and see how Sora and Draco are faring in their match. 2 Roas. But are they actually? Both of them are on legendary skills rather than archives. So this might be a Hell tuning mirror. Paco says over in the Discord that they have no point in pushing. So we're going to go check on the scores after this game, as it is entirely possible some of the players have so many points they feel secure in the top 4 position. Alright, so we see Hell Tuning Invasion popping only a Babysitter Goat, but the Essel is huge, reviving a second Heavy Metal. However, the Widespread Ruin is going to mitigate that advantage, and since Sora did not swing into the Kobold, Draco has a chance to get an extra card filtered through the deck if they wish, but it looks like they don't even need to. They are using Invasion alongside a Shadow Buyer. They now have a full board and plenty of damage to boot. Alright, we see their own Kobold, but once again, it looks like they don't need it. However, if this is a Invasion, rather than the Heavy Metal, they wouldn't be able to use it. But they do draw a Heavy Metal instead. Shadow Buyer is technically able to attack, but there's nothing worth clearing. However, perhaps you do just have to go for it. Leaving a Shadow Buyer on board means an Invasion would be lethal. Now, Draco is going to need to have specifically Heavy Metal if they want to clear this turn. Alright, and here it comes. Invasion. Clearing out the Shadow Buyers in the trade may have just been exactly what they need. And with only the one monster on board, the Shadow Buyer lethal threat is non-existent, as it is unable to boost itself to level 7. And with this, Sora is able to make another play. Shadow Buyer increasing its level. But they don't draw anything, and are forced to swing in to finish themselves off. Let's go ahead and see what the standings are looking like. There is just half an hour remaining. Paco secured in first place with 6,000 points. Renegade and Boongle are both only one win away from taking first. But what Paco is doing, as you can tell, we haven't seen Paco in a bit. They are hoping that the 6,000 points is good enough. If they simply do not queue for the next 30 minutes, they may not end in first place, but they have a very good chance of finishing in the top 4. If Renegade also is holding, then we'd have to see players like Sora or Whoop win enough games against the other remaining players like Manarchist or Draco to actually be able to knock them down. Let's go ahead and see who is playing. As you can see, only 5 to 6 players are probably still queuing. Alright, and Zid is up first. The Nail Mirror match, where no players are using any of Nail's cards. What a classic situation. The Maximum Ragnarok deck seemed like it would be pretty solid at the start of the box release. However, it ended up just being overshadowed by a lot of the other decks, especially with the rise of Piercing Samurai as a card, a deck restriction that makes you play exclusively 0 and 100 defense point monsters is kind of an issue. You never have to worry about a random 1400 defender getting in the way of your monster swinging over. Alright, looks like Manarchist has opened with nothing good. Well, potentially a Widespread Ruin, but nothing able to clear out the Cybertech Alligator. They have a boss monster, but not enough monsters to actually bring in their own. Herpility Sisters L is going to make themselves immune to Widespread Ruin, and that means Faithbird would be able to get in. Okay, and now we see Hysteric Force. this is over 5,000 damage. Not quite lethal. And a Dosodon is flipped up. Manarchist just immediately concedes. The Hysteric Force skill pushing in too much damage. Alright, and let's see what Whoop and Sora are up to. These players both have top 100 finishes to their name. So it should be a good match. Especially if they are on Hell Shooting Invasion. Both of these players have presumably played with or against the deck enough to know what's going on. Manarchist says, I'm going to queue in and then surrender for 30 minutes to push someone out of top. Manarchist, please do not do that. Invasion goes ahead and wipes the board. That is a pretty explosive start. Let's see what Sora has in response. They have their own copy of Shadowbuyer, but it looks like they might be lacking another low-level monster. Heavy Metal is coming in, and it's going to absorb that invasion for an insane amount of damage. Sora is at 2,500, risking a loss to a Heavy Metal, but Quasar is also at 2,400 and cannot really hold out for very long. 2 set cards, but there is no Babysitter Goat in the grave. Is this going to be good enough? And still no Babysitter Goat on the board. Invasion clears. This would have to be Widespread and Guard. Wait, no. 100 life. Whoop still has a chance to come back. Now this is where a Palace Gargoyle could be crazy. Destroying the invasion before you flip over the monsters is quite good. However, we still haven't seen any trap cards from Whoop. No, from Sora. If Sora has an actual face down card, it doesn't really matter what way Whoop sequenced this. Oh, and it's a level 3 monster. A Heavy Metal could destroy Invasion here. And then swing into the Kobold for game. And it is a Heavy Metal. But will this be the Widespread Ruin? Draco says they are giving up. Oh, but they have the Genie's Fire Breath. And Whoop claims this game. So, a lot of the players are just about done with dueling. So I think in the future, we might try a 90-minute time limit for the next one. Since a couple of people are saying this one does feel a little bit long. Which is good to know. So we know from the current standings, Paco is holding. Renegade is also holding. And I'm actually pretty sure we haven't seen Boongle in a while either. The question is mainly if Magnum Cringe, also known as Sora, is continuing to queue or not. 4,800 is definitely a lot of danger, as if you let Whoop and Yaon queue into a game, one of them is guaranteed to win and pass Sora. So I think Sora does need to keep dueling. And there it is. Sora is part of the only remaining duel. Alright, and they are actually first, which is of course a great boon. Being able to get 4 cards or even 5 deeper into the deck means you're much more likely to find your important spell and trap cards than your opponent. We see 2 cards in Sora's hand, but we don't know if those are boss monsters or just additional low levels. Additionally, we know they are a Harpy player, and leaving the Hysteric Force up to chance could be a mistake. A Crabot gets flipped up. If there were any stronger monsters that could have been summoned in attack mode, it may have been worth it to place that Feral Imp face up rather than letting the Crabot get flipped. We see a Shadow Buyer. But it's only going to level 6. You need to use Hell Tuning Invasion before the Shadow Buyer if you're planning to attack with it afterwards. However, with the heavy metal coming down, it looks like their plan might be to avoid using the skill altogether. Currently, you are able to attack with all of your monsters, and by not discarding a card, very odd, it looks like Sora has bricked on 2 additional high-level monsters. They don't even attack with whatever this face down is. They traded off an Essel alongside the Shadow Buyer, so this should have at least 1,000 defense. But, just as I say, Sora has bricked. We see Sias with no monsters on board. Cobalt going to filter. We know there are plenty of boss monsters in Sora's hand. And here comes a heavy metal. Plus Rogue of Archfiend, giving them both immunity to a widespread ruin. If there's not a copy of the guard, face down. This game is over. 2500 connects. And Sora claims it. Renegade points out that the players not queuing depends a lot on the number of players. Since theoretically you are able, if there were more players, there would be a higher threshold for the safe zone, mostly. Oh, and it looks like Whoop has actually claimed first place here, moving Paco and Renegade down. Boongle, Sora, and Zid are actually all within just 1 game of top 4. And if Yaon beats any of these, and if Yaon beats Magnum or Boongle, they might actually gain over 1,000 points and sneak on in. Welcome, ICKA. It is going really well. We have a couple of players who are nearly guaranteed a spot in the top 4. However, other players are continuing to fight, and that 4th spot is incredibly competitive. We're gonna go ahead and spectate. Keep in mind, if Sora loses a battle, they are going to drop by 1,000 points and fall out of the top 4. And then, if any of a couple of other players actually manage to win a battle, they can surpass as well. So it is not safe at all. Let's see what happens here. If Boongle wins this match, they have a pretty good chance of sneaking in. There are only 15 minutes remaining until the top cut begins. Well, okay, probably like 20 minutes because we have to set it up. 15 minutes until the point battle portion ends. And here is the power of Sword and Shield. Piercing Samurai completely walling out a Harpy Lady and leaving Sias with no cards or no monsters on board. Trigger Drago boosting up. Do they have the widespread ruin? They do. They stick around, but are still taking over 3,000 damage against Boongle's full 6k. And with 2 back row of their own, Sias has their work cut out for them. How are they going to overcome this? Bum, 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 bum. Alright, we see a Harpy Lady Sisters getting boosted by Speedy Performer. An incredible card in these decks. A lot of players are running 7's Road Mage as a level 2 monster with 800 attack that is able to do a 400 debuff on the opponent. However, Speedy Performer is quite good in a meta where cards like Sword and Shield are viable. The 1000 defense means it is able to trade with a Harpy Lady Sisters that has been boosted by Hysteric Force and its own effect. And of course, the 1000 defense is able to clear out certain monsters that Mage could not, such as a Piercing Samurai or a Heavy Metal that has absorbed a weak monster. However, in this deck, usually you are going to be absorbing a Harpy for 2100, but it does still take significantly less damage if you Speedy Performer and swap the attack and defense, since Heavy Metal would then only be getting the boost it absorbed. Alright, so we see Sias is unable to fully clear the board, and that extra card might just help. We see a Sensor deck build and the immediate concession. Looks like there's just one battle going on. Let's see how it goes. Alright, and we have Thunder or Harpy versus... what will it be? Light Sorcerer doesn't tell us a ton. Dark Sorcerer does probably suggest it is going to be someone's Axel Road rather than Magnum Overlord. Those extra 9 slots you have from not running the maximum pieces, 3 of them go into Witch, but then you kind of have 6 other slots where you're just kind of running whatever seems good. Auto players do fill it out with stuff like Fire Golem for the attribute variety. But you do have plenty of options, including some non-spellcaster monsters. I know at least once today we have seen a player running Essel in the 7's Axel Road. Anyway, it is turn 4. They could theoretically search out a 7-Sword Magician, but they are choosing to hold it for later, presumably when they are able to get a bigger boost. Torn of the Windweaver is dealing a solid amount of damage as is, and we see that they already have 2 cards to set. With a full field of 1500 plus monsters, this could be trouble for Zid. And they appeared not to have a single boss monster. That Torn of the Windweaver is going to spell huge trouble, especially when Magical Stream goes ahead and destroys widespread ruin. Double Torna, flipping up those monsters. A huge blow to Zid's life points. The Harpy Lady is not too bad, but Speedy Performer is huge, and it looks like it was a 50-50 to flip up a Faith Bird instead, which would have saved 1100 life. And we see another set 3 pass. That is not going to end well. 7-Sword Magician is coming in for sure. And with no back row, we see Witch. And this is absolutely game. Witch and Magician swing in and finish Zid's life. Oh, and it looks like Manarchist is still queuing. But where is Manarchist at? Do they have a shot? Or are they just getting in some extra practice? They are at 11, which is a little bit rough. But the 4th place spot, it actually looks like Riv and Renegade have been pushed from 1st and 2nd to 3rd and 4th. If Yaon or Sora, well no, Sora is actually a little bit behind. But if Yaon wins their next game, they will be up above 6,000. Maybe things were not as safe for Renegade as they thought. They have not been queuing in order to try to hold on to a top position, but they might fall out right near the end. Paco, who stopped at 6,000, just 100 points above. Are they in a good spot? Or is there a chance for 2 players to overtake them? If Renegade sees they are about to fall, and they queue up and win, and if Yaon wins as well, there is actually a chance for Paco to fall out. But the only way to find out if that's going to happen is to spectate another game. And we know Yaon is fighting for a top 4 position. Paco says, this is giving me some flashbacks. I mean, I wasn't going to say it, but Paco might be familiar a little bit with falling out of the top placements with minutes left to go. Just a little bit. Alright, so we see a tribute set turn 1. Interesting play for a Thunder deck. Presumably it is going to be the Stormbolt Destroyer, but why bother? When you can just keep it in hand. It is Stormbolt, but I feel like setting 3 would have been fine. Having the Stormbolt and a guaranteed low level makes it really easy to summon your boss monster. But now, there's a chance you just don't draw into any. But we do see another Stormbolt Destroyer anyway, so I guess it is fine. 2 back row. And the clear is safe. No Widespread Ruin comes down. I like both of these decks, but I guess I technically am rooting for Yaon here, as they're the one in top 4 contention. Clapping Thunder is going to decrease attack, but that is a miss sequence. They had the ability to draw an extra card off of the Clapping Thunder, but failed to summon the Duckbill first. How unfortunate. Stormbolt Destroyer is coming in. Angler Coilfish revived, but there's no piercing on this board. And Yaon should be safe for another turn. Manicus is thinking. Manicus says they wanted to set something up. I might have missed something with the Clapping Thunder play. I'm not sure. But I would say focus on winning this duel first, and then tell me afterwards. Alright, they do clear the board, but that is no damage. And it is past turn 4. Oh, Manicus saying they wanted to only set the Clapping Thunder and accidentally misclicked activating it. That does make sense. The card was completely wasted as is. I thought they were missing out on a draw, but they simply wanted to put it face down. Alright, Mystic Dealer. Getting them closer and closer to whatever it is they want. Presumably we are just looking for any one-beat monster to be able to search out the 7-Zone Magician here. No Widespread has been activated either, so the extra draws are always appreciated. Dark Sorcerer. And we know the skill is going to be activated. Are they going to search out and tribute summon a 7-Zone Magician or not? The alternative is pretty weak. It would be just like switching something to defense with Torna and barely running over it. So I agree with the 7-Zone Magician play here. Now, do they clear out the Stormbolt Destroyers, or do they go for the extra damage by attacking Angler Coilfish? Wait, they crash into Stormbolt Destroyer, and I think that does leave them a little bit vulnerable. Obviously, the Angler Coilfish would be coming back, but having another monster of your own on board seems really important when you're facing down Thunders, especially if you have no cards in hand. Thunder Gazelle and Trigger Drago are both incredible threats here. 7-Zone Magician losing 700 also goes down to 1400, which means a low-level monster is going to be able to clear it, even without it being switched to defense mode. Blast Draw is presumably going to boost the Search Bolt Lizard. That way, if there is a Widespread Ruin or other trap to stop the Stormbolt Destroyer's attack, Search Bolt Lizard is still able to clear, but they actually switch it to defense mode for reasons beyond my comprehension. Perhaps they are worried about a shield and sword. It is Recital, but Manicus misses out on damage. That being said, they are still in a pretty good position. Summons Axel Road has already used the Search effect, meaning they're going to have to play normally. Recovery Force is being activated, and putting back 2 7 Magicians and Valkyria. What are the odds of them actually drawing one? Tribute to the Doomed is going to be kind of expensive here, though. A Shield and Sword would have been a much stronger card. With 2/0 defense monsters on board, it would have at least potentially led to a lethal line with, like, Witch Magician. But it looks like Yaon doesn't actually have anything. Summoning out a Lone Witch after destroying the Stormbolt Destroyer. 2400. And while they can clear the Blast Draws, they once again have no cards in hand, and Manarchist is claiming a win. Paco is rooting for Manarchist. They do play together. But I think they might actually be rooting for Manarchist here, as Yaon is in top 4 contention, and they want Yaon to lose the 1,000 points, and not risk Paco's own placement in the top cut. There are only 5 minutes left. So, whatever we see after this game is probably going to be final. Keep in mind, the way that the point battle works, if a match finishes after the end time, it does not count. In a lot of events, usually it's like, if you've started your game by the time is called, you get to finish it. But it is not the case for a point battle. If the game is not done by the time we reach the top of the hour, then the points will not accrue. And we have Renegade deciding to hop back in for a final hurrah. Was it necessary? Let's take a look. It is. Renegade is tied for 4th. They could have theoretically qualified for a tiebreaker round, but they are fighting Zid, so consider this the tiebreaker. We are spectating this match for sure. These 2 players are in 4th place. If this game finishes before the top of the hour, one of them will gain 1,000 points and guarantee their position, whereas the other will fall down and not have enough time to catch up. So I believe this is going to be the last battle we see. Zid starts with a double normal summon and 2 sets. It looks like Renegade is on Hell Tuning Invasion, presumably, but I think setting your monsters is still fine. You want the opponent to have to use the skill to get in for your damage. There are cases where you do want to summon the monsters in attack mode, but I'm not sure this is one of them. However, they do actually manage to land a double Ghost Cyclone, and by leaving their monsters vulnerable, rather than having the Cobalt Kobold swing into them, they get a huge advantage, destroying both King's Majesty and Widespread Ruin, which would not have happened had they made what I think is generally the correct play of setting your monsters face down. Perhaps this was all part of their plan, and they are simply a better player than I am. Hell Tuning Invasion. Setting the Babysitter Goat up. Renegade has no high-level monsters, so they simply used Hell Tuning Invasion to get another card out of the hand. However, Talismanic Seal Array is going to debuff this Nessus. Nessus is in attack mode because Zid is on Hysteric Force and would be able to otherwise switch a monster face up. Unfortunately, Zid is running the Torn of the Windweaver package, which I guess isn't really a package, it is just itself. And that is going to bring the Babysitter Goat into attack mode and seal Renegade's fate with 2 minutes to spare. These games are going on, but it is quite unlikely they are going to finish. So, I am going to go get some water. We will be back in just a couple of minutes with the final results, and we will start the top cut. The top 4 players are going to make their way into a single elimination bracket. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back. And we are back. The point battle has ended. And our top 4 is Zid, not Quasar, Paco, and Bungle. Paco just barely making it from first place down to 4th. Let me go ahead and ping them for the matches. Let me go ahead and make a new duel room for them. Also, I need to actually ping them. So we have Zid versus Paco, 1st and 4th, of course. And then Bungle versus Quasar, who is actually Whoop in disguise. Let me go ahead and make a duel room for them. Let's leave here. Go back to the PvP arena. Duel room. Create room. And then rush duel. Also, after the event ends, we are going to use this room for viewer battles. So I'm going to set the capacity up a little bit higher. Normal regulation. Actually, no, we're going to have to switch the room afterwards. Because after this, the viewer battles are going to be with the updated regulation. Well, we can actually just set it and assume they are not cheating. Well, is share deck on? Okay, I guess I will just make a new room. That doesn't take that much time. Let's go ahead, confirm. And then once the deck lists are submitted, I will send them the room code. Which means I do need to actually, well, okay, I guess I will just post the room code. All of you, stay out of it. I mean, I guess there's not really too much you can do to troll. If you really want to join the room to spectate yourselves. But okay, room code obtained. Announcements. And we have received Bungle's deck list. And they actually have an amazing profile picture. Looks like Whoop is sending me something. So that is 2 of the players. So we are waiting for Paco, Zid, and then Whoop actually hasn't sent the deck. They were just asking a question. Here it says, Magnum Cringe didn't make it. No, yeah, Sora actually didn't make it into the top 4. But I mean, every tournament's gonna have a little bit of luck. And that was a very competitive top 4 placement. Even Paco, who established an early lead and held, only just barely made it. I think if a single game went differently, someone else could have gotten above 5,000. Alright, oh, and I see a couple of direct messages. So we go confirmed. Oh, okay. So everyone but Whoop has submitted. And that means the first match is going to be Paco and Zid. Paco says they are new. They have never played a single game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Prior to this event. John is... Wait, John, are you Zid or Boongle? I actually don't remember. Keeping people's real names and usernames matched up is something I always struggle with. Also, I will be back in like just 1 second. Give me a moment. Okay, I am back. Alright, we see Whoop is in a game, but they have not actually sent me a deck list. Okay, and there we go. They can go ahead and begin. Oh, I think Zid did not notice the room code. I'll go ahead and ping them. Alright, and while we do that, this is going to be a best of 3. So whoever wins this is going to have an advantage, but they aren't in the finals just yet. There is no more changing your decks. Everybody is locked in with what they feel the most comfortable with. And we're starting off. I'm not going to reveal anything, since this is technically a closed list for now. They could be playing anything. We see a set 4. A pretty strong opening hand from Woo, who I think for the remainder of this event, I will simply call Quasar to not confuse any incoming viewers who are not familiar with server lore. Pogo says, it's not best of 1. Shucks. Gee willikers. Darn. Alright, we see a Piercing Samurai. Quasar has plenty of low defense monsters in the deck, but also presumably cards like Palace Gargoyle. And I was gonna say Goat, but the Palace Gargoyle conveniently flips up. We see an early Widespread Ruin. Perhaps they are afraid of a spell trap removal card coming in later, so they don't choose to save it. Or perhaps the card they have set face down is something like a Shadow Buyer that they wanted to protect. They destroy the card that is not attacking, preventing them from getting into that final face down monster, if it is a Shadow Buyer. And even if it's not, we do see a Palace Gargoyle on field. It's able to use its effect and set up a Heavy Metal by itself. We see a Kobold go to the graveyard and then Essel. With the confirmation of Essel coming onto the field, almost certainly we are going to see a Heavy Metal rather than Invasion. Heavy Metal absorbs the Surge Bolt Lizard and can swing in for 2,700. Alright, we see a Shadow Buyer. And without activating the skill, it means both of those monsters are going to be able to swing in. Shadow Buyer locks them to Fiends, but Feral Imp, of course, is going to be just fine. And that's 2,800 plus another 2,500. This lightning deck is on its last legs, and it is only turn 3. Let me see what I missed. Renegade says, it was a tough event. Reminded me of Stage 2. Didn't face as much trouble as Stage 2, though, so it was fun. Yeah, I mean, we only have 11 players, and the people who are actively seeking out tournaments are, of course, going to be, on average, a little bit stronger. And even if we look at name recognition in the event, we have Whoop, who I believe placed number 6 in the first Go Havash Festival. We have Paco, who placed 11th in the second and has won multiple events. We have Sora, a player who has won 2 of the last 3 events held in the Rush Duel community. So if half of your field is very strong opponents, and the other players are also good, like, no disrespect to anyone else that I didn't name there. Those were just the ones that came to the top of my head. A lot of players do struggle to find good opponents on the ladder. Players in gold and lower are, of course, going to be running whatever they have access to. And even in King of Games, by the time you get halfway through the month, all of the players are just budget players running Harpies because it's the best deck they can afford. So if you're ever looking for a higher level of competition, feel free to join some events. Harrier hosts great ones every Sunday. We have these point battles on Friday with some other events on Tuesday as well. And Quantum also sometimes runs events on Wednesdays, Thursdays, sometimes Fridays. It's a little bit less consistent. And then Manaka says, it's weird how much more fun the meta is without Royal Bubble everywhere. Purely coincidence. And I don't care how much Rebels was playing, don't know what else I would have done. Facing a lot of Harpies and SRM, so the Dark Arts of Celerity doesn't work in this meta. And then ICKA says, any prize. This one is actually just a pretty, casual, competitive environment for practice. Room replays, that was game number 1. And then let's go ahead and see Paco versus Zid. Both of these duels are advancing to game number 2. Alright, and Paco is up first. And he says, this is tougher than any of Harry's events. I'd say that's probably because it is smaller. If you're playing against the Grand Harrier players, all of the times, the first round or two, you might be playing against players who are more there for Harrier speed events and are playing, like I said, just for fun or for extra practice. I definitely have had some more budget players. Not to say that they are worse at the game, they just very clearly didn't have the same level of collection as the players you'd find in the top cut. But focusing on this game, we see a Dragius coming down. Thunder the Thunder, debuffing Speedy Performer. And we see a Shield and Sword being added back to hand. Paco concedes. After the incredible reversal from the trap, Paco had used their own Shield and Sword, putting the Harpy Lady to 0 defense. Then, Dragius getting in for 2,500. But with the activation of the trap, Dragius goes down to 1,500. And the Harpy Lady Sisters regains its original attack, allowing for an incredible comeback. Next, Quasar and Boongle. Rebels versus Thunder. I think we actually, do we have 4 different decks? The top 4. A Rebel player, a Thunder player, a Harpy Lady, and an Aggro. All 4 of the top decks are getting a spot. The only one missing is Magnum Overlord, which has seemed a little bit unpopular lately, even though it should be getting pretty solid results as well. We see Essel into a double heavy metal board, and that is an incredible turn to high roll. Just immediately ending the game. Was that game 3? It was not. Unless I'm missing something. Oh, we're both of these 2-0 finishes. So I think that means it is Zid versus Whoop. let's wait for them to report. Okay, yeah, Paco says they are out, so that makes sense. So we know Zid is advancing. And I mean, we just saw Whoop with an OTK. Alright, so that means the finals. Whoop versus Zid. There's no point necessarily in differentiating between third, but they can if you want. Alright, and Paco has declined to play for third place. We are simply waiting for Whoop to queue in. And there we go. Quasar, who is Whoop, versus Zid. Ready whenever they are. Renegade says, the deck switching was another thing that makes this tough. Harder to predict a meta when it's constantly changing. That is true. Adding the metagame adaptation to the event, I think, is a high point, though. I think being able to identify when you need to switch your deck is a skill. And I like being able to reward players expressing. That's also why I kind of like the open deck list thing. Because it lets players play around decks and avoid running into random gimmick traps. It's kind of the opposite. When everything is closed and changing, you have to be able to adapt to that. But when everything is out in the open, you have to be able to actually identify this and figure out what to play around. Like, it gives you the ability to do that easier instead of just doing random guesswork in the context of an individual game. Alright, so we see a Harpy Lady coming into attack mode. And a second one. I suppose they are thinking, Whoop can switch everything to attack mode, why even bother setting? But this does mean, theoretically, they could start swinging in with cards like Nessus, without even activating the skill. We'll see what they go for. And we see a Kobold. Are they going to dig? They do. Feral Imp going down. That's a 1300 that theoretically could have cleared a Trick Pigeon. But it's also not a very important card. Essel, okay, but do they find a boss? They do not. That said, they do find a Palace Gargoyle. And if they had a heavy metal in hand, the Palace Gargoyle would have been pretty good. But it looks like they actually have nothing. So, this becomes a much more awkward board. And you can kind of see the advantage of putting those monsters in the defense mode would have saved Zid the 300 life. And Whoop may have even taken damage swinging into cards like Harpy Lady with the Kobold if they chose to attack. But ultimately, I think either way, Zid is walking away happy here. Keeping two monsters on board and not facing down a single boss is great. Alright. And Harpy Lady Sisters plus Twin Edge coming down. Buffing that Twin Edge up with the Harpy Lady Sisters could be brutal. Do they have the resources? We know there were two Harpy Ladies in the grave. Presumably this is going to be a 1500 Twin Edge Dragon able to attack twice. But which monsters will they actually choose to swing into? Will they play around Recital, the Guard, Barrier? Alright, and this seems like a pretty reasonable way to do it. The biggest monsters get in first, and then the weakest monster is attacking directly and last, playing around both the Recital and the Guard. Ghost Cyclone activated, but there are too many monsters in the graveyard due to the mill from Essel and Cobalt Kobold. So no card is going to be drawn. Whoop is going to need to find a boss monster in order to stay in the game. Theoretically, a Shield and Sword could be good here, but I think they are on Reincarnation. Or nothing. I didn't actually look at the full... I just had Whoop confirm a list. I don't actually remember what it is. But I know in the past, they have told me they prefer Reincarnation over some of the others. Alright, so we see a double debuff. And Shadowbuyer is boosting up. Either boss monster is going to be good here. Welcome, Nathan. Alright, and Heavy Metal comes down. Presumably another Shadowbuyer activation is incoming. And shuffling away, perhaps the Shadowbuyer back into the deck. Just as expected. Heavy Metal getting in for 2,500, plus another 200 from the Shadowbuyer. Leaving Zid without a board, but with only 700 life points remaining. Whoop is in danger. A single Trick Pigeon reviving a middle piece would be game. Or just any of their other boss monsters too, especially the one immune to trap cards, can safely run over Shadowbuyer regardless of what Quasar has set. And we see the Talismanic Seal Array. With this, even a pair of low-level monsters might be enough to do it. Rather than debuffing the Shadowbuyer, they go for the Heavy Metal, though. The Shadowbuyer would have been down to just 400. And that would have been enough for these two monsters to guarantee lethal. That being said, it looks like it is still enough. Whatever was set was not good enough to stop all of this. And that means... Harpy Ladies is up 1-0 against Royal Rebel. Will Harpies claim a win? By the way, speaking of tournament tops, we seem to have a pretty good variety now. For a while, prior to the Goha Rush Festival, it felt like there was kind of a stifling effect. But we've seen aggro start claiming some good finishes thanks to the Goha Rush Festival. And then we have decks like Sora's 7's Axel Road, Ancient Arise Dragon, and even a Resonance top listed on the site now. Anyway, Quasar opens with a set 5, but Zid has the Piercing Samurai. They do lose Shield and Sword, but they are on Sword and Shield as well, so they might just be able to recur it. Boosted up by the Speedy Performer, guaranteeing they are able to get in, regardless of what they run into. Speedy Performer, probably worth attacking. We've seen two monsters with over 0 defense, so I think the odds were in Zid's favor that at least one of the monsters was going to be a Currybot or Shadowbuyer with 0 defense. Unfortunately, it does not work out for them, and they take 1,000 damage for daring to attack with Speedy Performer. Alright, and I see we have a lot of Harpy supporters in the chat. But I mean, Harpies won the Rush Festival. Surely they are the big meta deck everyone should be rallying against. Am I right? The poor little rebels need support desperately. Can't Konami just think of the Roa fans and give them a little bit of support? They're starving out here. Plus Minus says, Harpy Ladies without the pet dragon is currently the favorite deck because you get to play so many spell and traps. Yeah, I think it is a good idea to run it without the pet dragons in a tournament environment. I do think, though, the Harpies are very popular on ladder. So I do still maintain to run the pet dragon if you're expecting the mirror match a lot. But back to the game. Zid is looking to be in a rough spot. Twin-Edged Dragon is fine, but it's not currently able to clear anything. So it is going to be tributed off for the Widespread Ruin Immune Harpy Lady Sisters L. With Hysteric Force, it is going to be able to clear over this Royal Rebels Invasion. Talismanic Seal Array significantly debuffs it as well. And we see plenty of monsters going back into the deck. I think that might be all of them. 2 Talismanic Seal Arrays and the Shield and Sword are down. Renegade says the Harpies are annoying because they are a fan of decks like Celerity and Ultimate Bond, both of which require the opponent to have level 7 monsters on the field or want to summon a level 7 monster in order to do their own game plan. We see the Cybertech Alligator coming in and skating just under the 2600 attack of the Harpy Lady Sisters, completely shutting off Quasar's access to traps. But with only 2700 life points remaining, a Shadow Buyer plus an Invasion could end it. However, it doesn't look like they have it. Shadow Buyer is using the effect before the activation of the skill, so this is going to be a heavy metal turn. And that means they are swinging in for 2900. That is lethal. Even if Whoop has no other monsters. We see them summon them anyway. I wasn't sure if they were going to BM and swing in with the Currybot and take more damage before going in for game. But I guess they were just doing it because they didn't want to do the math. But that does put us to game number 3. It is anyone's game. We've seen a pretty decisive victory from both players. It takes a lot of skill to make it to the finals, but at this point, there is a good element of luck. When both players are good at the game, sometimes the draws are going to determine it. Let's see what they do. And that is not a great start. Whoop with 2 face-down cards. And of course, we know Zid is on Harpies. A single boss monster is going to flip that monster right up. And if it is the middle piece, it is even... Well, it probably isn't going to be able to boost the Twin-Edged Dragon at least. Speedy Performer will, though. 1400, but that is not enough. If there's a babysitter go, we are going to need to see a Tribute Summon, which we do. Harpy Lady Sisters, Hysteric Force, here we go. And it is a lone Currybot sitting here. Twin-Edged Dragon, discarding the final card. It is the Harpy Lady Sisters, and the game ends immediately. Providence has coalesced around Zid, and ensured Whoop loses. I don't think there was very much, if anything, they could have done. Congratulations on winning this event. Let me take a moment to go ahead and report the deck list over to Colossalus so we can get this thing submitted to Duel Links Meta. whenever they get the chance. And then I'm going to go ahead and remake the room. If anyone would like to do a view... Well, actually, hold on. I should do that first. So players are able to join the room while I am managing things on the back end. We're going to be doing an unlimited duel room. Now, even though it is unlimited, please don't bring Triple Dragius, Triple Phoenix Dragon type decks. The unlimited room is meant to be so that players are able to use decks like Resonance and Ancient Forces, which have recently been unhit. I'll go ahead and get this. Wait, I forgot to increase the number of players able to enter the room. So we will try it one more time. Duel room. Create room. Rush duel. Room capacity to max. Then we go here. I think that's everything. Did I actually set it to... No, this time I have done it incorrectly again. And I have not set it to an unlimited room. Third time is the charm. Duel room. Create. Rush duel. Capacity. Max. Unlimited. Okay, here we go. If anyone would like to join, here is the room code. And now it is time for me to go report the rest of the deck list over to the mods. Then we have third place is this one. And finally, Paco in 3rd/4th as well. Copy image. And there we go. Alright, so did I miss any chat? Renee, it says the best against Harpies is probably Max or Magnamok, but it's iffy against the more popular deck, so I haven't really tinkered with it in a while. I could see it being a solid matchup. Alright, and Demon B Gaming has joined the room. We're gonna go ahead and see how it goes. Oh, also, I do need to copy the duel room code and send it over to somebody who was asking me the other day. Anyway, our opening hand, not looking great, but we do have a Piercing Samurai. If we manage to draw into a Tribute Monster, I suppose this is fine. Hammer Crush deal aggro. Alright, and that is a full set 6. That's a pretty dangerous start. I could try to sneak in damage with the Samurai, but against an aggro deck, I feel like I am much more likely to be taking a big hit on my own. And they're running cards like Gazelle that are able to block it. So instead, we are simply going to let them take the offensive. They're probably going to end with some kind of low-level monster, so I'll keep this one around. And then pass turn. Maybe I can at least get them to waste a card on this. Trigger says, is this the strongest deck known to mankind I am seeing? Quite possibly. Though, with a start like this, maybe not. Though, if D&B somehow bricked on low-level monsters again, our board isn't too bad. There's a good chance they are running some random. I'm gonna say there's a chance they're running random low attack monsters, but things have gotten significantly more dangerous very quickly. However, they don't flip up the final monster, which is good news for us as it means we take no damage here. However, we do still have 3 backer to get through, and a Widespread Ruin is pretty rough. Fortunately, we have drawn into a Ghost Cyclone of our own, and we have exactly 3 monsters in the grave. We destroy Shield and Sword, which I am happy enough to have done. And we're going to go ahead and bring in Dragius here. But the question is, do we actually want to try swinging into the opponent's Dragius and leaving ourselves a little bit more open? I feel like the answer is no. So we're just going to take the safe route. We're going to put out 1 Dragorite, set the other, and start swinging. See what happens. Alright, if they don't have anything, maybe clearing the Dragius does make sense, because their own Dragius is already going to be able to clear 2 monsters anyway. And if they have a Recital face down, we could bait it out. Okay. Unfortunately, maybe I should have actually kept the Speedy Performer over the Dragorite. As then I would have actually cleared the Dragius while keeping my own on board. We are definitely in a fair amount of danger here. We know they at least can't Reincarnation since there is a Shield and Sword, but with 2 cards set, I am kind of expecting them to go ahead and Tribute Summon a second Dragius. We will wait and see though. Alright, a Kanon. And if that is all they have, this is actually pretty good for us. And here we go. We have found the Burning Blaze Dragon. Meaning we are actually able to play a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh! Here. Piercing Samurai comes down. And then, do we need to use the Crawling Torso? I don't think so. Because we're going to tribute off for the Multi-Strike Dragon Dragius, tribute off for the Burning Blaze Dragon, and then summon the Samurai, and that's going to be every card in our hand. And that means, let's go 1, 2. Dragius comes out. Piercing Samurai is next. And we activate the effect of Multi-Strike Dragon Dragius to send a card to the graveyard. Burning Blaze Dragon over Dragorite, and of course we are going to keep Piercing Samurai on board for its chance to inflict additional damage. Give it Piercing, activate our skill Ancient Forces, but we are not going to be sending anything to the graveyard, as we have no need. Let's enter the battle phase and try to get in for our biggest damage first. Then they might have a Recital, so I do want to swing in with the Dragius, so we have a guaranteed second attack. Piercing Samurai attempts to get in, and we do get 200 damage, followed by Dragius. However, it looks like they have a copy of the guard, so they walk away without a ton of damage this turn. However, we do already know they have no high-level monster in hand, and they are only drawing 3 cards this turn. If they are running a low amount of high levels, we're in an okay spot. And we know they have Sensor Duckbill back in the deck, but there are no Trigger Dragos to be seen in the grave. So let's see how they do it. Pago, this is Ancient Forces. So this build is largely based on the Go Hard Rush Festival's Harpy list. We use a lot of the same principles. Hysteric Force raises a monster to 2100 attack, or sorry, to 2600 attack, whereas so Ancient Forces and Hysteric Force are both able to do that, getting our 1-2-8 monsters above the 2500 threshold. Then we can get over set 3 boards with cards like the Piercing Samurai, which you can boost with a Speedy Performer. And the skill also protects our big monster from a Widespread Ruin, as the Burning Blaze Dragon and Clear Ice Dragon are both going to be stronger than Dragius. Piercing Samurai is, I think, actually a pretty solid card in the deck. because we are already incentivized to play Speedy Performer in a build that is running a lot of 1-2 monsters. And being able to boost up a piercing monster is generally pretty good. Right, we do see the Talismanic Seal Array, but they are choosing to debuff the Burning Blaze Dragon to have an easier time clearing the board rather than debuffing the Dragius for a larger total debuff. It is only an extra 200 damage that they are giving up by doing this. Essel, Mill, Stormbolt Destroyer, setting up a Duckbill for later. However, they don't have another monster with over 1200 attack, meaning Piercing Samurai sticks around for another turn. We draw a Ghost Cyclone, but this is not looking too powerful, is what I would say if we weren't actually able to clear this board, which we are. We can use the Crawling Torso and boost it up. Speedy Performer is going to send a card to the graveyard and then boost the Torso. Clear Ice Dragon, summon out next over the Speedy Performer. We can go ahead and throw this face down before boosting the Clear Ice Dragon. It only has 1600 attack by default, but thanks to the power of our skill, we are going to boost up Clear Ice Dragon to 2600. And with this, our preparations are complete and we are able to clear this board. Let's head into battle. Start by taking out the Biblioteca Alligator, and then both of these monsters are able to clear both of theirs, so it doesn't matter what order we attack in, but we'll do it like this. And Demon B Gaming is down to around half health. We have seen 1 Dragius, 2 Dragius, and the Phoenix Dragon, so unfortunately, I did forget to actually activate the Clear Ice Dragon and put the Phoenix Dragon back into the deck, which would have been a pretty good play, especially since it would have also let me get rid of the Sword Divas in the graveyard. That is a huge mistake. I completely forgot to use Clear Ice Dragon, and now they are going to punish me for it. They bring in a Stormbolt Destroyer, and they could go into a second boss monster here pretty easily. I only have 1 card in my hand. We don't know if they are on Trigger Dragos or not. Oh, but they might not actually have a Vanilla Thunder. They don't have anything to summon with the Stormbolt Destroyer. Unless their final card is another 2/2 monster, but it is not. And that means once again we are keeping a monster on board. Will they go for the extra 300 damage, or the extra 200 damage by attacking the Quelling Torso? Or are they going to clear out the Piercing Samurai to prevent me from potentially swinging into a defense position monster on their field? They do clear the Piercing Samurai, and now it is our turn. We draw. And we are running very low on cards in deck. So we are going to summon the Crawling Torso, and then actually use the effect to add a card to our hand. And then, so we need to keep 3 cards in hand, which unfortunately I think means we need to go like this. Activate the skill. Ancient Forces, buff this. We will not be sending anything to the graveyard. And then we battle. Let's try to clear over this defense mode monster. Oh, and thank you for the raid. Happy Ryax. Hope you've been having a good one. We did see that they have a face down card they're able to activate, which actually makes me a little bit scared of destroying the Stormbolt Destroyer. I'm gonna actually just swing into here and try to get in for more damage. If it's the Widespread Ruin, they could have just activated it the first time, but whatever. We have a lone Crawling Torso. Will we actually be able to survive? How many Seal Arrays are in our graveyard? 2 copies. And unfortunately, I don't think I am running the 3rd. Oh, and welcome, Serena. So yeah, I think I actually would have been in a much better spot if I didn't mess up with the Clear Ice Dragon there. I would have had a Phoenix Dragon in the deck, and then I would have been able to draw into it, and revive the Dragius, and I would have had an extra card in general, just to not be decking out. So I would have been able to establish a better board. This is indeed Ancient Forces. but I am currently forgetting how to play it, despite me bringing it to a finish in the Go Havash Festival back in December. It has been a long time since I played with this deck, and I am messing up and being punished for it pretty terribly. Interestingly, my opponent does tribute off a Stormbolt Destroyer, which is pretty odd, because they could have just summoned the Kanon and then had a Stormbolt Destroyer alongside the Dragius anyway. I mean, they have the Duckbill, so they're able to recur it, but it still seemed a little bit unnecessary. Alright, Dragius is activating the effect, and here comes a second Dragius as well. They enter battle, but we do have a widespread ruin. That is going to go ahead and clear out one of them. But we are taking 1500 damage plus 2500. We are left with just 100 life. And no cards in deck. We somehow would need to win the game this turn. And I don't think a hand full of 300 defense monsters is going to get us there. We'll go ahead and summon them out. Do what we can. Clear Ice Dragon. Activate Shield and Sword. Activate our skill to go up to 2600. We can put a card back. And, oh, they actually only have 4 cards left, but they weren't decking out either. Phoenix Dragon going to the top of the deck. And so are their Curry Bots. Take that. Battle, we swing in. And unfortunately, that is simply not going to be enough. We lose game number 1. Alright, they tribute off 2 Curry Bots. Instead of just ending the turn, they decide to win via damage. It would be very funny if I had some kind of trap card that blew up their board and shuffled a bunch of monsters into the deck, but no such thing exists. Before we queue into the next game, I do need to go ahead and send this room code over to somebody else, and then I will go ahead and queue into Manarchist, who I believe has entered the room. And next up, I will be fighting Manarchist. Anyone who wants to join, let me go ahead and actually put that info up in the stream. Alright, so anyone who wants to join the duel room is able to do so. How was the tournament? I'd say it went pretty well. It definitely did feel a little bit long, but that might partially just be because of the number of entrants. I think 2 hours is fine if you have enough players. Alright, so Manarchist, I think, prefers Thunder over Harpies. So with that in mind, we are going to set 4 and not Tribute set, as we want to keep a card in hand, and are less concerned about them flipping a monster face up. Pass it over. Let's see what Manarchist has in store for us. Alright, and we see an Angry Coilfish. We are safe. 3 monsters. Unfortunately, we could widespread here. I don't think it's the right play, but I do want to get aggressive with it and see if we can't make a big push on the next turn. Keeping a Speedy Reformer around does actually give us a lot of wiggle room for making a big push. Whatever they attack doesn't matter. We drew all 3 Speedy Reformers, and there is a Shield and Sword. They have 2 Zero Defense monsters. But unfortunately, we drew not enough low levels. But that's okay. Shield and Sword, let's go here. Piercing Samurai. Flip Summon. But no real need to use the effect, as we are summoning, so we have the option between the Clear Ice Dragons or Dragias. 26 and 600. I'd rather keep one card in hand, and then just have a stronger board. Oh, wait. Okay, Speed of Reformer does work if I summon the Clear Ice Dragon here first. Activate the skill. Boost by 1,000. No need to send. Then we get in for an extra 400 damage here. And we're swinging for basically just as much damage as if we had summoned the Dragias. But now we have 2 monsters on board and a card in hand, keeping us safe. And they should be in a pretty rough spot. Obviously, if we had drawn another low-level monster over one of these Clear Ice Dragons, we would have been in an even better one. As the game would be over. But this is okay. We see a Sensor Duckbill, but I'm pretty sure they did not have any high-level monsters on the board. Stormbolt Destroyer is able to revive a card. And by debuffing one of my Clear Ice Dragons by 600 points, they are able to clear through this. However, they don't choose a Surge Lizard. Which means they might actually just be swinging over 1 instead of 2. Their life points are pretty low, so they might be a little bit afraid. But I am okay with this. Our move. We have a Ghost Cyclone, but we aren't able to use it. However, we did draw the one and only Piercing Samurai. But yet, once again, we do not enough low-level monsters. Let's go ahead, throw down some cards. Are we able to use Clear Ice's effect? No. We haven't found a Dragorite yet. So, no shuffling away these 1500s. If this is the case, I think we do need to just go ahead and summon a Multi-Strike Dragon Dragias. And then we boost up the Clear Ice Dragon, so even if my opponent has a widespread ruin, we are going to be safe from it and clear this board. Activate the effect of Multi-Strike Dragon Dragias, and then activate Ancient Forces. And there is our Dragorite. So let's go ahead and put it back into the deck. Clear Ice Dragon, sending away Dragorite. Shuffle away these 2. And if they are running Talismanic Sealerite, I guess it makes it a little bit harder, but they are going to have 4 anyway. So I guess it's not a huge deal. Battle. We want to play around with Seidel, so we're going to swing with Dragias first. They could also have a Thunder Spark, so we're going to swing with Clear Ice Dragon before the second Dragias attack. Thunder Beetle boost gives them an additional 2,600 life points, and that means they are going to survive this turn. But they are still taking 100 total damage when all things are said and done. We are also out of cards in our hand, so a Trigger Drago is a little bit threatening. However, none of our monsters are particularly low defense, so I am okay with it. And there's always a chance they don't find a boss monster. Alright, they draw a ton of back row. Our move. Nothing too crazy here. Let's just go ahead, Ancient Forces. Boost up. Send a card from deck to the graveyard. No. Summon the Dragorite. Throw this down. And we will use Dragias' effect to try to get in for game. I'm expecting a Widespread Ruin, but they wouldn't be able to activate it here. They need to start with something else. Okay. And then Dragorite, finish this off. Nope, they have a guard. Do they actually have a second guard also? They are sending back in 2 copies of Duckbill. But are they able to stop this one? And it looks like the answer is no. 2,500, Dragias ends it. And I guess I actually need to start saving some replays if I am making a deck profile. So we go ahead and save this one. The other one, it's not that I lost, it is that I messed up. And I don't want to show off games where I'm misplaying terribly because that is not a good showcase of the deck. So if anyone is around and would like to duel, oh, looks like Blade King is here. Cypher says, why is this the only English Duel Links room? And it is Rush. Yeah, I think Duel Links, despite the huge IP, there is not a lot of um, activity over on Twitch. Like, there are frequently only a handful of streams, and very few of those are going to be running a duel room at any given time. Well, I do say that, but Grand Harrier is currently running a, nearly 300 viewer tournament. That is actually wild. I did not know they were that much bigger. The Rush tournaments, I think, get like 50 viewers. Or maybe it's just Grand Harrier is much bigger than Quantum and everyone else. But wow, that is a ton of viewers. Is there even anyone else playing Rush right now? Oh, somebody is on Harpies. Interesting. It's kind of rare to see it. Oh, and Slifer says a lot of them are not English. Yeah, so there's a lot of Portuguese, French, occasionally 1 or 2 Japanese players that are streaming. Anyway, Blade King goes ahead, summons a bunch of vanillas. I mean, that's fine. We can summon a Piercing Samurai and boost it up with the Speedy Performer, so it's going to be able to clear one of these monsters. Activate effect. Boost this. And then we summon the Burning Blaze Dragon over the Speedy Performer. And 1200 is not enough to clear any of those, so we just go ahead and set this face down. Activate Ancient Forces, but as always, we aren't actually trying to thin the deck. So we enter the battle phase. I'm worried about a potential Light Sorcerer of Sanctity, but this is actually incorrect. As if that face down card is Curtain of Sparks, I am now in danger. Or even a Barrier is actually able to stop the Piercing Samurai now, which is pretty interesting. So I definitely should have swung in with the Samurai first. It's just been so long since anyone has actually flipped up a Barrier on me that I didn't even think to play around it. We see a Magic Curtain, but we know they're on an Archive skill. Is this some kind of... Oh, it's probably Magician Shuffle. But we see a Hydro Magician. Was that really worth the Magic Curtain, though? That's not even able to clear the Burning Blaze. Do they have another boss? It doesn't look like it. Alright, they do clear out the Piercing Samurai. But since Burning Blaze Dragon is on the board, we already have part of what we need to out this. A Dragius would be pretty big here, and we actually do draw it, plus the cards to summon it. Summon the Dragius, and we are going to send a card to the graveyard. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 solid targets for this Talismanic Seal Ray. So let's go ahead and activate it. Return you, and these 2. We'll leave one of the Piercing Samurais in there, as Speedy Performer is a more general combo piece. We debuff this, and then activate Ancient Forces for good measure. I don't think they're going to be able to stop this, but, one way to find out. We swing in. And we swing in again. They are down to 200. And it is not a recital. That is going to be game. Cantrip, I think the other cards were probably just more low-level monsters. But I do agree they could have simply chosen to set the Magic Curtain at save 1,000 life points by tripping off one of those level monsters instead. So I do see how it is a little bit weird. And you can see here while we load in, that Paco does indeed have 2 top 100 finishes. We are up first. I think they are on Resonance. But does that help me at all? I feel like Resonance is going to be running cards like Dragius, so we are just going to go, unfortunately, and set these all down. We're going to save the clear ice for next turn, and hopefully we don't end up bricking. Now, back during the Go Hawash Festival, I was playing Ancient Forces because it did have a good matchup into Resonance specifically. And that's partially because of the Clear Ice Dragon and its ability to shuffle away Sports Dragons from the graveyard. Okay. Flip up this. Then we Burning Blaze Dragon. My opponent is probably on Shield and Sword. So if they have a Widespread Ruin, I want them to destroy the Burning Blaze Dragon, which is a 0 defense point liability. Let's go ahead and activate Ancient Forces. And we're going to boost this one. I guess we really didn't need to since they didn't activate tribute anything. But that's okay. This should help us reveal, and with the Triad Drago, we can confirm they are probably not on Ancient Forces, but instead are a Resonance Enthusiast. Looks like their face-down card isn't much of anything either. Presumably, it is going to be something like the Shield and Sword, or a Talismanic Seal Array, which is going to be live if they tribute summon a monster. Hopefully, it is not Shield and Sword, as we have 2 0 defense monsters, and of course, it is going to be Shield and Sword. Dragius more or less ends the game on its own here. We know they are not setting and passing because they activated the spell. So, we will see them. Oh, it is not a Rise into the Light. Dragonic Slayer is fine with me. If I had to pick one, that is a lot better. Resonance, of course, is going to pop this face down, but it is only a Ghost Cyclone, which wasn't going to do anything here. Twin Ice Dragon is getting in for 3,000, plus another 1,200, puts me quite low. They have one Sports Dragon set up. Hopefully we draw a boss monster. And we do not. But they already have a Twin Ice Dragon on board. I think maybe we need to switch out these zombies for something else. Because this is the second game out of like 3 or 4 where if they were just like winged dragons, we'd be in a better position. I mean, we can Phoenix Dragon and try to get out a monster. And then we just kind of need to hope they brick. Is the unfortunate truth of things. Phoenix Dragon, ditch this. Add, this one, I guess. Normal summon. Yeah, let's go ahead, activate the effect. And I want to sequence it this way. We put the Phoenix Dragon back first, then we return the cards to the deck that aren't going to help them. Then do we want to Talismanic here? We can actually get a lot of good cards back into the deck that way. That works for me. 1, 2, 3, 4. The alternative would be to use the skill first and send an extra Burning Blaze to the graveyard so we can shuffle it back and keep a Dragorite so we can use Clear Ice on a future turn. But I'm okay with this sequence and simply getting the extra Dragorite back into the deck. Then we unfortunately do have to set these face down and swing into the Slayer and just kind of hope they don't find a boss monster. It is theoretically possible. We did put 2 low-level monsters back in the deck, which will increase the chance of them bricking. Twin Ice Dragon immediately going for the effect, which means I think they do have something. Or at the very least... Oh, maybe they are just choosing to get it out of the hand. Dragorite and Fortress. No way to clear the Clear Ice. That is very good for us. But we are still going to need to draw some good cards to continue establishing the lead. We definitely don't need this, so let's get rid of it by tributing it off. I would like to clear the board, so we're going to summon a single Crawling Torso. And then Seal Array. I don't really want to send all of those back, actually. That's just kind of filling our deck with garbage. So, Ancient Forces, boost here, and then don't send anything. Simply throw this face down, and battle. Unless they end with under 800 life points, this is not necessarily a misplay. Crawling Torso clears out the board, and they do only get 3 cards here. Obviously, Dragius comes in, and I instantly lose. But we're doing what we can. And the Crawling Torso doesn't make a difference. In the lethal calculation, as Dragius is 900 times 2 on the 2 Clear Ice Dragons. I could also theoretically go ahead and just set them both face to defense mode. But, then I'm still losing to Dragius because they would have a Twin Ice Dragon on the board. Alright, they summon out a Dragorite and set more monsters. But it is Dragonic Slayer, and that is going to be 1800 damage for game. Even if this was a trap card, it wouldn't help me here, as Slayer is going to go ahead and pop it anyway. And good game to Paco. Let's go ahead and save that one as a loss. I guess I will go against Demon. Have I fought? Yeah, I fought everyone here. So we restart, and we fought Demon B first. So we're going to challenge Demon and then Manarchist. So the zombie engine is in the deck specifically to deal with opposing rebel players, but we haven't matched up against any of them, which is more reason to not be running it. We could actually summon out a turn 1 Dragius if we felt like it. And the alternative is setting 3 and leaving a Dragius in hand, where we might brick. You know what? I am gonna go for it. Phoenix Dragon, Purple Mirror, and then let's just get a full board, including a Dragius, and see if it's good enough. Crawling Torso revives the Purple Mirror, and we can throw it face down. This also means we're going to have 4 monsters in the graveyard, setting up our Talismanic Seal Array for the next turn. Let's go ahead and see what Demon is on this time. Alright, starting off with a set monster. Not too threatening. Oh, I am at 0 against a Thunder player. That is an issue. Stormbolt Destroyer is fine. They did not tribute a normal monster. Lightning Trigger is going to clear out the Dragius, but I'm okay with that. That is not a ton of damage coming my way. Blast Jaws uses the effect. And that is 400 extra damage. I suppose setting the 3 and passing would have worked out a little bit better. Well, actually, maybe they would have just summoned in normally and swung over the entire board. And that is why I was afraid of keeping the Dragius in hand. And we actually still only have 3 monsters. So I think it is time to set some cards. I could summon the Dragonite, but I don't think it's the right move. Let's go ahead and put some more cards face down. And we pass it over. As long as I have a card in hand, the Thunder deck shouldn't be able to do too much piercing damage. They could summon a Piercing Samurai, which would be pretty threatening. But that is the worst case scenario as far as I can tell. Blast Draw is using the effect and recycling another monster, which is a little bit odd if they are on Seal Arrays, since you would think they want to save it for later. We see another Stormbolt Destroyer, but once again, no vanilla. Gazelle coming down. Okay, with this, my board is cleared, but it isn't as bad as, oh, they actually choose to play around the Ghost Cyclone, which I would have liked to use here. That is fine though. Let's go ahead and summon Purple Mirror and tribute it off. We definitely don't need it. Then Dragonite is a reasonable flip here. Anything worth shuffling back? We definitely do not want to give them Duckbill, so we will not be using Clear Ice Dragon. But also, we don't want to shuffle back trash like this. So what we're going to do is activate Ancient Forces first. We boost the Clear Ice Dragon, and we send a Burning Blaze Dragon to the graveyard. And then that gives us additional fuel for the Talismanic Seal Array. We activate the effect, and we return 4 good cards back into the deck. And we can debuff a Stormbolt Destroyer in the process. Piercing Samurai can come in next, and we'll throw down a face-down card. We could mill 1, but we already have plenty of monsters set up. So I think we just head into battle. Oh, theoretically, actually, now that I think about it, my opponent could be on Thunder Spark, which would destroy my Clear Ice Dragon when I swing into this. So using the Clear Ice Dragon would have been able to shuffle away the only 2 monsters. That said, it isn't a Thunder Spark, it is a Widespread Ruin. Let's go ahead and try one more time to clear out Stormbolt Destroyer. Fortunately, at least we managed to get rid of one of them. And now we pass it over. Do I speak Spanish? No. I speak so little Spanish when I went to go in my head and ask, how do I say I don't speak Spanish in Spanish? My answer that the brain gave me was no habla inglés, which is I don't speak English. That's how bad my Spanish is. Alright, we see another Stormbolt Destroyer, and they finally have found a Surge Bolt Lizard. Lightning Trigger is going to go ahead and debuff a monster. Will they switch the Samurai to defense mode? Presumably not. And a Talismanic Seal Array for good measure. I might be dead. 4,800 plus the Vorse Raider sounds pretty bad to me. They debuff that one, which makes sense. Yeah, we have to let that through. And that's 2,044. I mean, I have to shorten shield to get the 800 debuff on my opponent. And I survive with 200 life. Definitely not good enough. I draw a Phoenix Dragon, but I only have 1 boss monster available. I can grab Clear Ice, debuff 1, but then I can't clear the Vorse Raider and I die. So they have got it. Let's see what Manarchist is up to. And good game, Demon. I think we have played against everyone that had joined the room once or twice, so we might call it a day after this. I'll probably save the previous game against Demon B for reference. And then probably record a postscript for the video. Phoenix Dragon. But again, this feels a little bit awkward. I think we do want to summon the 2 Clear Ice Dragons and save Dragius for later. I already have a Dragius in hand, so this time we are going to activate Ancient Forces and get rid of a Burning Blaze Dragon. This is going to reduce the chance that I brick on the next turn. Let's head into battle and see if they pop a Widespread on me. They do not, but they are on a Speedy Performer. This might be the mirror match. As Resonance cannot run the Performer, and Hammer Crush Deal wouldn't be running a Merchant. We see a Samurai into Burning Blaze Dragon. Speedy Performer flipping up, and they almost definitely have another Tribute Monster. Yeah, I can do one more duel against each player if they want. But I think we are going to close the room. Paco, if you want to queue in with Royal Rebel, that is fine. And then Demon, I will play one more. Alright, and they bring out a Piercing Samurai for the 3rd. They managed to find a pretty solid board. Which we have been struggling to do. Crawling Torso plus Performer. Performer, boost, Torso. And we mill Widespread. Okay. Summon Thing. Dragius. And then we want to keep the Torso in hand. So we're going to activate this Torso to get a monster we can set. Dragius mills 1, set a monster, and we head into battle. Try to clear out the Burning Blaze Dragons, but if they have a Widespread, then I guess they just have it. But it doesn't look like they do. So we actually managed to successfully clear the board. However, clearing the board like this with 2 face-down cards, it very much sets off my Talismanic Seal Array radar. And now we even have a 0 defense monster being swapped, and Ancient Arise Dragon instantly ends the game here. Phoenix Dragon, also pretty good. Burning Blaze Dragon leaves me at 200 life points, so they don't need a lot for Dragius to get overrun. And at 3,300, that is going to be game. Let me grab a replay. Which ones did I already save? Riv. And Manarchist. So I do have a save against Demon. Let's go here. And then, Demon, you are up. Or, Paco, if you wanted to have Rebels. That also works for me. Oh, but maybe Demon is on Rebels themselves. Okay. Our opening hand is actually pretty solid for once. Though, a Widespread Ruin or plenty of other things can also still cause issues. But we actually do get the Piercing Samurai live. So we definitely want to activate it, and we will tribute off the Dragonite instead. As long as we don't run into a 1400 defender, this pays off. All the players are, of course, on Babysitter Goat, and even more and others still are on Imps, not to mention Palace Gargoyle. So this may or may not work out for us. Let's go ahead and swing in here and see what happens. It is indeed a Gargoyle, which unfortunately I think is a monster we do need to clear. So instead of getting in for 1200 damage and wiping their board, we do 0 and leave them with a monster to spare. A rough start, for sure. And they have a Shadow Buyer. So assuming they have another level monster to pair with this, the Shadow Buyer could theoretically be swinging in alongside an invasion, etc. I suppose the only other one is Heavy Metal. And both of those monsters are actually able to increase their level to 5 or higher. Oh, and we even see a Rogue of Archfiend. Maybe they will keep that one around to play around my Widespread Ruin. They do use Shadow Buyer, probably going to put the invasion back in the deck, as it is more useful to have bosses later on. Okay, but if they discarded an invasion, do they have the Heavy Metal in hand? Or are they going for another invasion anyway? It is Heavy Metal, which is swinging in for way more damage, especially when the Rogue of Archfiend is around, protecting it from my traps. We are down below half. A single invasion ends the game now, and we draw just about nothing useful. Talismanic Seal Array is going to put back the cards. But is that going to be enough? We need them to not find a boss monster, but we are pretty sure they already have a boss monster in hand. Otherwise, they wouldn't have played like this. They would have had a card in their back row or next to the Heavy Metal. So unfortunately, this is going to be another swift loss. For sure. We'll let him go ahead and summon it though. And maybe they draw 5 high levels. It would have to be literally every single one in the deck. Oh, Ghost Cyclone, destroying one of my face downs. That is fine. Defense mode monster, presumably a second one. Rogue of Archfiend, Hell-Tuning Invasion, flipping up their monster, and now they get a boss of their choosing. Yeah, so the high count of spell and trap cards is meant to mimic the way the Harpy deck works. However, when we're running Dragius, I guess it doesn't quite work out the same way. Because the Dragius puts on a pressure that the Harpy Lady Sisters do not. Oh, and where is Paco? Good game, Demon. Yep, Paco, queue on up. I'll do that game, and then I'll probably call it a day. I'm assuming you are the 4th member of the room. Okay. Oh, and Vex is here. I actually do have to fight Vex as well. But that's okay. Been wondering where they were. Okay, we are up first, and we have a somewhat reasonable hand. We are playing against Rebels, so we definitely aren't going to give them my Dragius for free. Let's go like this and see what they do. Presumably, we are taking some damage, but it shouldn't be too much. Ghost Cyclone, unfortunately, going to destroy Talismanic Seal Array, which does make outing a heavy metal just a little bit harder. But heavy metal represents a little bit less damage than an invasion would here. Rogue of Archfiend, but they don't need it yet. Oh, and the Shadowbuyer. Unfortunately, they ditch a heavy metal, and then can also recycle it with the Shadowbuyer. And we are taking a huge swing. It is a second copy of heavy metal. Shadowbuyer goes up to level 8. Speed Reformer number 1 gets destroyed, and they are able to clear the board. But this isn't as bad as an invasion would have been, as the heavy metal is only 14. Okay. We need to draw pretty well in order to do something, and we do not. Okay, I do think it's very funny to just, like, leave this in attack mode, but they already have a heavy metal on board, which I do need to kind of clear. Do I just leave a lone Phoenix, though? I don't think any of these are good choices. Maybe I should have just set. I don't know. I guess this is, like, fine. Maybe we mill a Clear Ice and can use the Phoenix Dragon afterwards. That is good enough for me. Phoenix Dragon, effect, grab Burning Blaze. And we are simply superior gamers. Oh, I had a Samurai I could have also milled. Right. I will not be sending a card from the deck to the graveyard. Swing in with Dragius. Swing in with Burning Blaze. And then swing in for 2,500. Now, as long as I don't get hit by another heavy metal, well, actually I should survive either way. Maybe we are in it. Heavy metal swings in for just 1,800, and 1,800 plus the 1,200 from a Shadowbuyer is not lethal. Same with a Shadowbuyer plus Invasion. That would only be 35. How I could lose here is if they go Shadowbuyer, Tribute Summon for Heavy Metal. Absorb this, normal summon, Tribute Summon a second Heavy Metal. And then swing for 5k. but that sounds very unlikely. We see a Doom Metal, wrecking Paco's deck. Do they actually, which one do they clear? Probably the Burning Blaze. Especially if that's a face-down, widespread ruin. Unfortunately, we draw Cyclone, which isn't going to help us much. But we do have some good cards here. Let's go with Purple Mirror, Burning Blaze Dragon, Piercing Samurai, Effect, Boost, and then Effect again. We have plenty of good cards to send back with Talismanic Seal Ray. So let's go ahead and do that. 1, 2, 3, and 4. We are going to be debuffing Doom Metal, boosting the Burning Blaze above Dragius for widespread purposes. No need to send a card to the graveyard. And I believe we did already activate the effect. So now we head into battle. This is lethal if they don't stop it. And that is game. And that means Paco has been farmed for content. Welcome, Sean. Oh, I see, Chris joined the room, but not a room. Unless they are hiding somewhere else. No, yeah, so Vex is in the room. Hopefully they are around. Okay, they did respond. So that means we should be getting there in a moment. And there they are. Let's go ahead and do one more duel. Paco says, the trickiest mill for Burning Blaze. How do you see, simply a skill issue. You saw I was playing Luke, so you knew I was going to get the card I needed. And should have been prepared for it. Alright, let's see what Vex is on. Looks like it's not an Archive skill, and Roman is one of the few characters without Hammer Crush Deal. So we might actually be playing a Psychic deck. We open with no bosses of our own. But if they set 3 and pass, we could go for a Piercing Samurai. However, they are summoning in attack mode. Fairy Basis coming in. They need to summon another one if they want to revive the Keytar. Alright, Concert is fine. And they should summon again. But why not use the basis for that? I guess ending on a defense mode monster is generally going to be better than the Concert creator. It just so happens that I have a Piercing Samurai. Oh, and they actually do put it in attack mode. Which I feel like is normally not right. Oh, but they're summoning a Gift Horse afterwards. Okay. So they had all of the pieces. And I can definitely see going for this board over setting 3. Especially, I mean, if you've seen my hand. Things are not looking great. We are just going to go ahead and set 3 and pass it over. I don't think they are going to have anything to pierce me with. So we'll see what they go for. I think we are safe. Alright, also it is turn 3, so we know they are not on the new Hangry skill. they could still be playing the old one. But I'm kind of expecting it to be Climax B. Based purely on vibes and the cards being used. Alright, 2 back row. 3 back row. That's an incredible... Normally, drawing 3 back row would be devastating. However, when you already have 2 boss monsters on the board, that is exactly what you want to see. I'm assuming it's going to be stuff like Climax Finale and Lullabind. I don't think there are going to be a ton of traps there. Okay. And we are going to do it again. But I will keep 1 Dragonite around, since boosting it with a Speedy Performer does actually let it clear something. Let's go ahead and end turn. And they are on Amped Up. Okay. That is fine. I don't think they have any reason to actually use the draw here. So they'll probably save it for later. And of course they are going to go ahead and swing in without doing anything. And that means even if I manage to clear their entire board, they will have a 6th card in hand to reestablish with. Alright, and I mean that is something. Let's start with the Ghost Cyclone. Pop this one. It was their own Cyclone. That is fine. We're gonna summon this first. Shield and Sword. Switch everything over to 0. I mean, I guess that one has 700, but that's fine. Summon out a couple of Dragonite. And Speedy Performer, activate the effect. Boosting you. And now we battle. Let's try to clear the boss monsters first. If they have a Sword and Shield face down, we are in danger. But I'm expecting nothing more important than a Severing Psychic Wall. Or the one of Widespread Ruin. Widespread Ruin activates? Sure. Unfortunately, missing out on a ton of damage here. And then we try to clear out the Bouncer. But they have another trap. Is this one of the Psychic? Poggers is predicting 3 Tribute monsters on the next turn. With a Stardom Light, it is certainly possible. They have plenty of cards in hand, and my board is looking pretty bad. Alright, Roman Pick is able to use the effect. Oh, and even without the Stardom Light, they have cards like the Berry Basis and the Side Stage Bouncer to establish extra bosses. We see the Giftarist first. Honestly, I'm just kind of expecting to lose from full here. Alright, show me another tribute. No, it's Monster Reincarnation. Which I suppose is indeed another tribute. But unless they have another Side Stage Bouncer, we might actually get away with only 2 bosses to deal with. That being said, I'm pretty sure their face down card is Severing Psychic Wall. So a Dragias is absolutely not safe to kind of just come in and win. And even if they don't have a third... Wait. Why do they not Giftarist? I feel like they're just missing out on 800 damage. I mean, I guess I am okay with this. Alright, so we are taking the full brunt of this attack. And we know they have the amped up draw whenever they actually get around to it. Which is definitely an issue. I think my win condition might be stalling for... Oh. So, I was going to say, my win condition is stalling for sword and shield, but it is in the graveyard. Talismanic Seal Array can swing in for a little bit, but is that enough? Like, if it's not ending the game, I don't think it's a very good move, because then I am in danger of just taking a big hit and dying. Especially if they haven't shown... Oh, well, they have shown widespread. I'm kind of tempted to just set 3 and pass. And then try to get in with a better board later. What are my better boards, though? I mean, I guess it's finding another Dragius. And then getting a double boss board of my own. Or at least finding my widespread ruin. Okay. We're gonna take a chill turn. And see what they do with that. Yeah, Paco, I definitely could draw into too many tribute monsters, but I think I definitely lose if I play it differently. Like, if I just let them grab Prima Guitarna after swinging in with the Burning Blaze Dragon, then Prima Guitarna plus Giftarist, I feel like it can get to 3,800. So I feel like I have to go this way. I mean, if they do actually manage to resolve the Esper Raid here, I would lose, because they get 1 direct attack. But that would require them to have a second Prima Guitarna or another way to lower their life points. The Roman pick is not enough, since it's only 500. I want to put them under 8,000. Oh, I do need to change the stream title. Well, I mean, we're already at the end, so I guess we're fine. Alright, they are setting a monster. I'm okay with that. We know in their hand they have an Esper Raid and a Ramon pick as the final 2 cards. Now, do they actually choose to use the Prima Guitarna or not? It is a possibility that they choose to lower their life points for later, but I think they probably make the right call by not doing so. We draw, and kind of as we might have expected, things are not looking great, but we do have a Ghost Cyclone, so this is okay. I think we Talismanic Seal Array, and we'll put back some monsters. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we are going to debuff Prima Guitarna, the Shining Superstar. And then we are going to Talismanic Seal Array again. And we are going to shuffle back 1, 2, 3, and 4. The question is, which ones do I actually debuff? I could bring the Prima Guitarna down to 0. And then a Burning Blaze Dragon going in would be a lethal hit. But then if they have a trap card, I don't win. Alternatively, I could debuff the Buried Basis as well. Then that's 2,000. And then, I mean, that is more of a debuff. And I do have 3 monsters. So I think that works. Okay, so if that's at 800, and that's 1,500 damage, they would have 1,300 left. And then I would have 1800 versus 400, which I think would be enough. So I think I'm going to debuff you. Then I Cyclone. And I know this is a trap. It was a barrier. Okay. Crawling Torso. Effect. Add a thing back. And then we summon Burning Blaze Dragon number 1. And we buff it up to 2800. I don't think we need to send anything to the graveyard here. Go ahead with Burning Blaze Dragon number 2. And then we enter the battle phase. We try to swing in for 2000. And that goes through. Then we try to swing in for 1400. And that ends it. We somehow managed to get a very convoluted win at the end. And that is going to be it for the stream. Thank you everyone who tuned in and watched.